Welcome to the Nick and Matt Show, bringing the player interviews you want to hear and the hot topics you want to discuss. Recording live in studio, here's Nick and Matt.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Monday night, Thanksgiving week. Pretty exciting. Tons of things to be thankful for and tons of awesome times coming ahead to everyone. This episode is presented by Cosmic DG. They're doing a lot of stuff out here in the Northeast, and then also went down the East Coast for a couple big tournaments throughout the year. So go over to cosmicdg.com, help support their efforts. Everybody have a cosmic day.
What time is it?
Yeah, we are starting
for our live listeners.
For our live listeners, we are starting at 7:31. For the post audio listeners, we are starting at the normal time whenever you turn us on. And we're starting at 7:30, which might just become the regular time. And no, I'm just kidding.
For the electronics and software geeks and everything else under the sun, I hope you can relate. I'm pretty ambitious with like preparing for a show. Like I prepare for an hour and a half, test everything, literally as much as you possibly can. It's all set. We go to live and the streaming software decides it's not sending any data.
Yeah.
That's the general idea. I say, I don't know what it is. Nothing changed. Well, there's a Windows update sitting there. And so in the last ditch effort, after restarting my computer a few times, I said, I'm going to do the Windows updates, which that's a whole nother thing. It did the Windows updates, did the restart, still didn't fix our issue. I was at my wit's end. I ended up uninstalling, for those who care, I went to the device manager, uninstalled the network adapter, restarted my computer. It found it, reinstalled it. We did the test and it worked. That's what 30 minutes of work will do for you. It's working. Yeah. That's not normally how we want to start an intro to the Nick and Matt Show, but there you go. People ask why this stuff happens. Literally, it's crazy and I don't know why. And maybe I need to get paid a lot more money to make sure it doesn't happen, but I thought I was doing pretty good. All right. So here we are, episode 166. There's a lot going on. We're a little bit behind here. We have a great guest lined up tonight, Jesse. I've never said his last name out loud. Is it Weiss or Weisz? Give us a thumbs up for one or two.
It should be Weiss, right?
Weiss. Okay, he says Weiss. Okay,
yeah.
First one. We're gonna get him here in just a minute.
We do have Evan just chilling in the background.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This guy.
Oh, this guy.
So, hello to Evan. Evan, fortunately, doesn't have to deal with any of the technical difficulties.
He just has to
same thing with me. I really don't have to deal with any of them except just sit here and hang out on Instagram Live with Ben. But
I was sitting in the dark for like however long those updates were happening. I was just sitting here like, is the show still happening? And it is.
Yeah, it is.
But I got some good work done, you know?
Good work.
Busy person, so I get some forced downtime and get some stuff done.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
So when our Patreon launches that we've been talking about for years, when it actually launches, someone just said, Wesley, they're like, hey, maybe behind the scenes, that'd be cool. So we could actually just have a phone streaming in here when things like that happen before the show. Maybe we could just do that. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right.
Pre-show.
So before we get into the awesome conversation surrounding this Fandom survey that just came out, the collaboration between Statmando and Ultiworld, and obviously the author here putting a lot of it together, Jesse Weiss, and we're gonna talk all things about. It's really interesting. Also, the shoes that these players are wearing. This is a whole nother article and write-up that he did, investigation on the shoes. I thought it was kind of funny when I was reading, and it's like he's taking pictures of players' shoes. I'm like, it would be weird if he said taking pictures of players' feet, but we'll say shoes. It makes it a lot better. So there you go. So we're going to talk about all of that. But before we get into it, I asked you guys pre-show, and I'm interested in the audience feedback here. It's not as big of a deal anymore, but disc golf played on a major broadcast network, right? CBS Sports. I asked before the show, and your answers were no, I didn't watch it. I find that to be interesting in some ways. In other ways, it's not a big deal. It used to be massive, right? Like I can remember the first time even disc golf at some level on ESPN, Nate Doss throwing Fountain Hills, right? Like that was like, it was on TV. Like we're all losing our mind. Now we're at a place where like, good for that. Like we have DGN, we watch it all the time. Like what's the big deal?
Yeah.
I watched it.
I want to cut you off, Matt. A part of it though is accessibility. I think I'm so excited that this gets on CBS Sports Network and getting in front of people who may not see it otherwise. But I don't know about Nick, but I don't even have this channel. So I wasn't able to watch it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was on CBS over the air, I can watch that. I have Paramount Plus. I looked through Paramount Plus. It wasn't available on there. I wasn't sure how to watch it, which isn't a disc golf issue. It's getting it to CBS and having them put it on the channels they want to and all that. It's
if you
tough.
had it, then you're saying, and maybe the rest of the room, you would have watched it.
Absolutely watched, yes. So if they put it on YouTube, which of course they could do that any week they want, it's a question of working with these major TV networks is the cool part. If I had the channel, I absolutely would have tuned in. I was ready to tune in if I got the channel. It was really hard to figure out if I had CBS Sports Network. Turns out I don't.
Well,
gotcha.
That is interesting. Like, that's the good point to bring up, the accessibility.
I want to hear how it went. So
I have no. I was just thinking through. I'm like, I guess I have it. I pay. We were talking to Simon last week. Evan wasn't here and Nick wasn't here. I'm trying to remember why this happened, but we were talking to Simon. He doesn't have TV. And I was like, no subscription service? No, he doesn't. So I was like, well, I have a subscription service. I pay for Hulu mainly so I can get live sports. My kids love sports. That's the easiest way to do it for me. So I had access to it and I tuned in with the kids. And I'm not going to lie, it's nothing special. Again, you're like, well, I'm watching it on like TV at CBS. So like there's that feeling to it. But I'll give you the gist of how it went down. They showed a lot of action of the final round of Worlds. So as it's unfolding, they literally were just cutting to all different players around. Like, and I thought it was great. I thought they were keeping the attention span, only seeing interesting things that happen, not showing like shot by shot of the lead card through the final round. Like, disc golfers might want to see that, but the average person is like, it's more like golf in that sense. When you watch golf, it's cutting all around. You don't just follow one card. So they did that, I thought, pretty well. They showed Isaac win, and that was it. So it was highlighting what disc golf is as far as excitement. And
anything on the FPO side? No,
only MPO.
Okay.
And they recorded special commentary. Big Germ and why am I having a brain freeze?
Really?
Yes, and Earhart. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
And Tanner, my son watching it with me, he's like, Dad, is this live? And I was like, no. He's like, well, how are they, like, who's doing commentary on this? Because it seems like it's different than it was. Like, it's not real. It's for what we're seeing right now. And I was like, yeah, it's post, but like they recorded it special for this. And they would do things like, and this is important, I think. Oh, like that's that disc or whatever goes right to left. Like most commonly when you throw this backhand shot, or they would constantly not overdo it, but they would constantly make sure the listeners or the viewers were tracking. So all in all, it's an intro for people to disc golf. That's what it is now. When we get on ESPN or anywhere else, it's literally evangelistic in nature, where we're like trying to like get an audience. It's not for the disc golfer. One day there might be a disc golf channel, probably not, but one day there might be, and then they can it's disc golf powered network or whatever, you know? So it's not what it is yet.
You know what was cool last time that we were on a major network that I want to see that happen this time is just you're watching it, it cuts to commercial, and you know, I honestly love disc golf commercials. They're fun. But when you get like a out of disc golf commercial or out of our normal rotation of commercials that we see like on Disc Golf Network or through YouTube post-production, you just see like Chex Mix or like PetSmart. And you're just like, that's so cool. Isn't that weird how you get excited about that? But I'm curious, like, did that same thing this year?
Yes. So you would see disc golf commercials mixed in with your usual network commercials. Yes, it happened. It made me wonder, we're kind of used to the disc golf commercials a little bit, but they're definitely low budget commercials compared to like Downy or whatever. I mean, like really, they're Pepsi or pick 'em, right? So you can totally see the comparison of like, this is not high budget. But for the most part, I think it did well, and it was cool to see disc golf. I think people were probably like, wow, this is legitimate or whatever, you know? So I think it was good for what it was. I see the chat saying maybe they should have had FPO in there. Cool. Like, I agree. But my take's not that they should have. It's more that it would be cool if we were able to do that at some point. They did that in previous seasons. They're trying all different things. They're going to see what sticks and what works. There you go. That was, by the way, Fox Run. It was the final round. Yeah. So, like, that's what it was. And Fox Run.
Great.
looks
course to
great.
showcase.
It
Yeah.
looks great on TV.
Well, especially being there live in person, the spectacle aspect of it for a spectator, just being able to see everyone around, 18, 10, 11, 12, 13, you kind of walking up on the dam. It's an awesome course to be able to spectate and then be able to showcase that. You kind of see the enormous crowd of people that actually was there, which is a huge boost in trying to showcase the sport.
It was
everywhere.
awesome. It was awesome.
It's different, showing 2023 Worlds versus 2014 Worlds. Or 2015 Worlds, 2016, 17, the amount of people that are there nowadays, the sport has grown so much since then, but it's definitely nice to showcase it on a course that actually does allow you to see it.
And I will say during live, sometimes I feel like the overhead camera, as in the drone, it's cool sometimes. Other times you're like, I wish they wouldn't have cut to that. Because this was post-produced between Jomez and DGN, they had so much content that they could use. Everything was pretty well, like the right thing. And then the drone shots really helped the viewer. I know it did for sure, because you'd see a shot throw and then they cut to a catch cam. And if you're not a disc golfer, you have zero idea what's happening from a reverse angle. When a disc is going one way and it's reversing, and you're like, that's an amazing shot. As a disc golfer, you think that. What's that shot? Was it an FPO player that threw it at Fox Run backhand? It has to go.
Allie Smith.
Yeah,
In the
aced it.
basket?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so that hole, it was MPO that we were watching, but that hole is very hard to communicate how incredible like that type of a shot is.
Yeah.
MPO's pushing it, and they're not even all completing towards the basket, right? They're like finishing hyzer out too. But some of the shots were amazing. And as a disc golfer, I'm going, that's incredible. They were able to go to, after showing it a few times, they went to a drone shot. And I just feel like that really communicates. They'll talk the distance and they'll be like, for those of you, they don't say for those of you who don't understand, but they'll go, 400 feet is, we're talking 400, not yards. We're talking feet, but like just to get people to understand some of the difficulty of these shots. But there you go.
The toughest thing about the drone shot is it doesn't really show the elevation. So when you know the elevation of what hole 8 is, it makes it just that much more impressive for anyone birding it on the MPO side, and then on the FPO side for Allie to get the ace is.
I think what it did for me, and the reason I brought that hole up specifically, is in the woods, it's easier to show the flight of a disc. Like, it's not actually easier to video and show it on TV, but I mean, it's easier to see how the disc can fly and maneuver through the woods. This hole from the drone shot actually showed a disc making multiple flight changes, right? So you're coming out left, you're moving right, and then finishing left on some of these. So it's like people aren't used to seeing that. In fact, was it Simon who said this? It's the only like sport in the world that has a multi-move through the air. You know what
Pretty
I mean?
much.
Not just like spinning one way or whatever. So
except for a knuckleball.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Is a
Yeah, I mean,
knuckleball? Yeah. Okay.
Knuckleball's going like this. Yeah, it's going.
It's moving one direction. Yeah.
I watched a soccer highlight today where it was a knuckleball free kick. It was sick.
Yeah.
But I think like I'm just thinking like what could be in disc golf video, and I understand why the drone is in the position it is. It's got to follow to like flight regulations. It can't be too close because of noise, all this stuff. But like, what if that drone could just be like half the height and then just be like looking at it from like almost a backward angle and you get to see it push forward? I mean, similar to what they do for like the distance comps.
Yeah, we're flying after the disc.
It'd be so cool. And like, I would feel like we're so far away from that, but also what disc golf production is doing makes us feel like we're not far away from that. And it gets me really excited.
Exhibition. They should bring it to an actual round coverage for All Stars. If they're doing a round again, they should include the drone because exhibition. Like exhibition. It'd be cool. All right. We talked quite a bit about that. I'm sorry. I went on, and we already started late tonight for us live as listeners. For those of you who are listening now, you're like, hey, this is cool. More content. That happened. We're not going to push off Jesse here any like more than a couple more minutes. We do want to talk about Champions Cup. The drama that has existed around this deserves a conversation because there's a lot of, I want to say kind of intricate parts, but I think a lot of this could have been avoided. And that's how I'll say it. That's my opinion. That's not a downplay on anybody. That's maybe a retrospective looking back at it. I'm not a part of the team, but we will talk about that when Eagle McMahon comments somewhere about Champions Cup colliding with the Swedish Open. And he says, this is not good. A lot of players were looking forward to the European tour. Reschedule the reschedule in all caps. When he's doing that and Paul makes a comment somewhere saying, like, you know where I'll be to the Swedish Open, like, as in I'll be there in attendance. And like, you have players responding, and then there's reports out there saying, like, now they're considering another reschedule. It doesn't look good for the structure and the organization of the PDGA. There's a lot of moving parts. I thought about having them on tonight. We're not going to really speculate about those moving parts too much. We'll talk about what we know, and that will probably be it. You have any comments quick on that?
I was gonna say, let's remember the inception of the Champions Cup. It was, hey, let's throw together a fourth major. Let's do 4 rounds of stroke play and 2 rounds of match play. And after the 4 rounds of stroke play, the top 8 players make it, and you scratch completely, what they have, whatever. So it was a very, very weird tournament from the start. A lot of backlash came because of that. And then it turned into just a 4-round sanctioned PDGA tournament major. And, but it was kind of like just thrown together all at once. It wasn't a tournament that, if you're hosting 5 years of a B tier, you can now qualify for an A tier. It was just like, hey, we're going to go to IDGC and we're going to have a major. Here we go. And, WR Jackson, absolutely incredible course, incredible property. It's sad to see what's going on with there. But now with the whole rescheduling aspect, it's the major schedule had already come out. The end of the Elite Series schedule had already come out, and A-tier schedule had, I think, already come out at this point. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, we've rescheduled it for right during the middle of an Elite Series event, also on the European swing. So a lot of players who, fortunately do have the money are scheduling their flights already to go over to Europe and spend the, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever, out in Europe. And now you got players potentially now having to fly back to the US just to fly back to Europe to make another major, another couple more Elite Series events, which, especially with how much emphasis they're putting on the European, the merging of the tours with that, it's just kind of seemed to be done too quick. Most of the, I would say, pro outreach with it has been, as Eagle had said, or as Paul had said, like, reschedule the reschedule. And there's plenty of more pros. And I think at this point, they're trying to figure out what is the best time to reschedule it. And I think we can all have speculation on that. You could say, beginning of the year, like it's originally planned, just put it somewhere else that mixes with the tour, or end of the year, put it in the Southeast because we're ending in the Southeast anyway. So put it there. You kind of start in the Southeast, and then eventually the tour brings it back to the East Coast and you make your way down. But then you have 4 or 5 back-to-back tournaments that are 4-round, 5-round events. So it's, it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy whatsoever. I think realistically, though, the biggest thing the PDGA can do at this point is really reach out with the Disc Golf Pro Tour and also the players, and trying to figure out what is potentially the best time to put another major onto the schedule, and where are they going to put it, something that flows with the schedule. But with how many tournaments there are nowadays, and I think with how many Elite Series events there are nowadays, A tiers that are, throwing up $2,500 for winning an A tier, it's great money. And so players are wanting to play these events, and all of a sudden you got, top pros in the world playing 25, 30, 35 events throughout the year. Maybe not top pros, but you're 10 to whatever. So it's crap situation.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to word it. I want to reiterate the reason why this is moving in the first place is because of something outside of all of disc golf's control, which is the pine beetle infestation and having to remove it. It's the course, even without the county coming in and clearing it, it's at a dangerous situation with these pine beetles hurting the trees, and they could fall over and whatnot in dangerous situations. So it's out of disc golf's control. Trying to make the best of it. It's clear by the players that they would like it to go a different direction. I'm glad that they're now supposedly working with the players and the Disc Golf Pro Tour to find the best timing for it. It's not an easy situation, like Nick's saying. I hope it gets figured out, because I like this tournament. It seems like they want to go to another wooded course just because it was originally rescheduled to Northwood Park. So my guess is they want to really get it to a wooded course, but at this point, we'll see. I'm hoping for a positive solution. It's hard to make everyone happy. It's very hard to do that. So I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping for the best, because I do like this tournament and I want to see it be accepted and liked.
Yeah. So I think there were 3 things that kind of led to this. Now, my safety investigation background is leading me to think about, like, what's the root causes here? Well, there's a few things. The PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour, this is the first year they've announced a collaboration for a tour where they've made events Elite Series in the way that they are, over in Europe. That some people thought maybe this was too early, maybe it's not, they don't really support it, whatever. That's all speculation on how they felt. I think it was a great thing. It's almost as if they forgot that they did that.
Yeah.
Because if this had been any other year, guys, and the Champions Cup lined up with a European event, maybe I'm wrong, but the feeling I have is nobody would have said anything.
Yeah, I think you're onto it.
Right?
Yeah.
It's okay. So it's the communication. It's like, this is what we're communicating is important. We're doing this. And then all of a sudden it was like, we did something that actually said that that was not the case. So that stood out. Number two is they shifted the event because of what Evan said, the trees. And as part of that, I say you got to understand, as if you don't, the listener here most likely does. Nate Heinold in this scenario and a team to run this event, they only have the times and places they can do it. I have zero insight there. I haven't talked to them, but like, there's a lot of big moving parts. This isn't just getting a TD and like setting them up to like run out your local course. Like, this is massive.
Yeah, we're talking about a major, realistic, and we've seen majors, you know, not necessarily fail, but have you know, some miserable times at those majors. With mostly, you know, kind of things that the PDGA might have done.
So my point is, this is not just the PDGA saying, oh, let's just slap another course in a place. Well, they have to make sure the team's there to run it. They have to make sure the course is up to the standards, all of that. So like the fact that Nate and his team said they would run it, or however that was going to work, right? Like, that was a time that they had available in the place. And there was, not to get in every detail there, but everything from using that one course to not letting Ledgestone use another during that same time at Northwoods. And I think I said there was three things, and I can't remember what the third was right now. But I would say, when I said they could have fixed all of this, when they scheduled this out, there's probably not one individual person here, but had they simply said, we let's look at our tour. Now, if they say our tour, they have to look at it all. So I think that would have just been the easy fix. And now going forward, what's the easy fix? Well, frankly, one of my thoughts was, why not just make something like, this is probably short-sighted, make another event that's already on tour right now, the major.
Make another event, Champions Cup.
Yeah, so make Des Moines Open.
Like, yeah.
So let's say,
like just make another event the major. Like, that's the easiest.
So we don't have any majors out on the West Coast this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they had kind of figured out, you know, hey, maybe OTB Open. Let's make that the Champions Cup.
That's what I'm generally saying. That would be the easy fix, but again, there's a lot of moving parts with that. So I'm not saying it is easy, but like, that would be like the scheduling fix in my mind. So Evan, any closing thoughts before we bring Jess in?
No, I think you said it really well. I agree with Matt very much on this one overall.
Wow. Good.
Wow.
We got to save that. We got to
usually
save that
80%.
soundbite.
Yeah.
Soundbite. I'm going to put it in my stream deck instead of
that'll do, my friends.
Instead of this.
That'll do, my friends.
Instead of that, it will be, I agree with Matt.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's very easy for us to agree when the PDGA makes a mistake. I feel like we're mostly on the same page. Majority of that.
To be clear, I'm saying it's hard, and I agree with the replacing an existing event.
Okay.
I'm on team nature is unbeatable, and it's tough to deal with that.
Or cancel the major. For what it's worth, it's not that valuable, at least to Paul Macbeth. And I'm putting words in his mouth. So I'm just purely saying here, he said he knows where he'll be. He is valuing one over the other. Now, I'm not saying whether he wants one or the other, but that's a demonstration. Now, actually, let me go back on that. He didn't say where he'd be. He implied. So all I'm saying is, I think when you look at these players and their choices, some of them are saying it is valuable. Some of them may not feel like it is.
Originally, this tournament was supposed to go from WR Jackson to Toboggan. I don't know what the whole reason was switching that. Maybe they wanted to do a little bit more of a redesign to the Toboggan course for D-Globe. But originally, I thought Champions Cup was supposed to rotate back and forth between those two courses, WR Jackson and the Toboggan.
What I know is that Champions Cup was so well received at WR Jackson.
They just decided to keep it.
For a while. They loved the course. They wanted to keep it there. Now I feel like it's the wooded major. That's my interpretation.
I like it. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it too. But
And I look for it to come back.
I want to start this transition. We've been keeping them long enough. I say we get into the Jesse interview.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Here we go. Let's bring in, we don't usually do special music like this. We do our other guest intro, but this is a big deal, guys. This has been a while in the making here, collaboration between Statmando and Ultiworld and Jesse Weiss. Let's bring him in. You can go to interview or 4Up or however you want to do this here, but welcome to the show, Jesse. Everything was super delayed, and we appreciate your patience very much. So tell us, you got multiple, well, tell us who you are first. We've had you on before, but remind everybody, what do you do for disc golf?
I write for Ultiworld as a freelancer, and mostly I focus on data stuff. Just kind of whatever I'm curious about, I write about as a hobby. But this is not what I do for a living. This is just kind of a hobby for me.
A hobby. And that's pretty much all disc golf ever is, except for a select few companies or individuals who are really killing it out there. But so let's talk. You had multiple shoe articles come out. I would like to hear about those, but we're also going to do a significant portion of the conversation around this fandom survey, which you're going to be able to tell us about. So however you'd like to intro these pieces, I don't know what you want to call them. I don't want to call them an article. I feel like they deserve more than that. So intro a little bit on the shoes here. Take it where you want to. We've got questions relating to this, and maybe you have some you want feedback from us as well. So go ahead, Jesse.
Sure. So I was at Worlds and I had no idea what I wanted to write about, but I had a press pass, so I've got to write about something. So I thought, what do people online ask about all the time? And what are the common, Reddit, Facebook questions? It's what shoes should I wear? And it comes up all the time. And I thought, well, why don't I look at what pros wear? Because these are people who are paid to play disc golf. It's very important what their footwear is in theory compared to all the rest of us. So if I could look at all their different shoes and then tally up what they're wearing, ask them why they're wearing that, I thought it might shed some light for us non-pros about what shoes might be most effective on the course. And so while I was working on that article, I got curious about Ideo, because this is a shoe designed for disc golf. And so I contacted Craig Kitchens, who's the guy who owns Ideo, designs the shoes. And I asked him, I interviewed him for that. So there's an interview with Craig Kitchens, and then there's also this article on shoes, which kind of goes over the main shoes that players are wearing, what are the most popular ones, and quotes from them about why they wear them.
Okay, so there are two. One is with the owner of Ideo. I have a pair of Idiosyncrasies, their first Kickstarter launched version. In full disclosure, I am one who cycles that into my shoe wear, and I'm happy to have them. Interested in any takeaways from that interview? And then maybe let's move into some interesting takeaways from what you noticed from the pros wearing shoes. Or pros wearing shoes, but the kinds of shoes pros are wearing.
I really enjoyed talking with Craig. I think he's genuinely invested in making the best shoe for disc golf. And this is not like I want to make money in the short term. Like, this is a long term. He wants to make a superior disc golf shoe. And it's a Kickstarter. So my impression from Craig is that he was very open. He explained things that went wrong with the first edition of the shoes, the first runs, and explained why those things went wrong and what they did to fix them. So I was left with a really positive impression of Ideo and with Craig. So I really support them. And
do we call people who wear Ideos idiots? Is that how it works?
I think so.
Okay, all right. We're a bunch of idiots, but you can quote me on that. Evan, I know we were talking before. You had a question for him. Let me lead into it, and then you can ask him specifically. I liked the question about, hey, why are only 4 people in the Pro Tour wearing your shoes right now? And more or less, like, why are you having to pay them to wear your shoes? You probably didn't quite say it that way, but as a reader, I'm like, ooh, that's fun. So he handled that question pretty well. And what was the ultimate takeaway that he said about that?
Well, it's a complicated answer, and one that I think really, probably annoys him. Is that he's made this shoe for disc golfers. It's got all these different features that are specifically for disc golf. The interview explains kind of how this is a disc golf shoe, what they did to design it that way. But his impression was that a lot of disc golfers, they wanted sponsorship money to wear his shoes because he's a disc golf company. And whereas, Nike or, other companies, I guess they treat it differently. So it's kind of like a double standard. Maybe that's kind of the impression I got from him, was that he felt like there was a bit of a double standard.
Let me put it like this, because I agree. I thought that was super interesting to hear his response. And then Evan, I'm going to let you ask that question specifically if you want to ask it differently. Players are like, hey, I'll wear your shoe for X amount of dollars a month. But yet they'll go out and wear Merrells and Nikes and Adidas. And in fact, they will pay for those shoes. And then they will reach out to Adidas and be like, hey, like, I'll wear this for whatever, I'm doing this for you on purpose so that like I give you attention. Like, what can you do for me? But disc golfers won't do that for a disc golf shoe. Like, hey, I'm going to wear your shoe to help put exposure on your shoe in hopes that the market grows and then we can do something together. It sounded real. I've never thought of it in that light. And I thought that article and that part was really interesting to see that they're like, when it comes to a disc golf product, you got to pay the disc golfer to wear it. But if it comes to anything else, and it seems a little bit backwards. So that was interesting. Evan, do you have any follow up on that? Did I ask it incorrectly or you have more?
No, you asked it pretty much how I wanted to, and Jesse answered it pretty much how I wanted him to. I learned a lot there because the way you write the article, it's you interviewing him, and you don't have time to react and say your opinion on it. I did want to open the floor if you had anything else to say on why you think that pros haven't caught on. But the answer you gave was adequate in my mind. But I'll at least give it the chance if you had any, like you, Jesse Weiss, what did you take away from asking him?
One of the other things he mentioned is that pros don't really want to try something new. So they don't necessarily, this is a brand new shoe. They don't necessarily want to be the first ones to wear it to some degree. But I think Craig's probably right to some degree. He also said that pros really care about style a lot. Some people said that they wouldn't wear a shoe because they didn't like the colorways of it. That they wanted to see, different, it to look a little different. So a lot of them care about style too. But there's so many different pros, and so I think it's hard to speak to any of them. And I think Craig's just hoping that eventually they'll catch on and that more people will wear them. The shoes have only been on people's feet for a year now.
Yep.
And it feels like Idio's been around for a while, but it really hasn't. And so these are new on the market. And so we'll see what happens. But one thing I did want to talk about is when the reaction to my article was, and including my shoe article, I often just saw people like immediately, their immediate reaction was, Idios, are, pieces of junk, they wear down too quick, or, mine fell apart or whatever. Even more often, I had friends whose fell apart, or I heard they fell apart, or that they were not good shoes. And I think that to me was a little frustrating. I've run two of my own businesses. I'm running my own business for the last 16 years. And if I were judged by what my product was like in the first year or the first iteration, the first run, I wouldn't be in business still. It takes a while to improve things. And a Kickstarter, part of paying for a Kickstarter is knowing that you're investing in a startup.
Yep.
And that it's probably not going to be perfect, but you're helping to invest in the future and make something that could really suit you and your audience.
That is a fantastic point. I did the Kickstarter wanting to support this and give a go at these shoes. I fully expect that they're going to do different things. I think I even saw in one of your portion of your article. By the way, the chat's asking questions about the toe box, all this stuff. Go check out the article. There's a great interview with the owner. He's talking about these changes, but even changing things from like the rubber texture to making it maybe a little softer, just trying to figure out all these balances. And so I'm excited to try the new iteration of Idio. Ooh, iteration of Idio.
That sounds cool.
Definitely down to try it. Mine have not worn out. I do not wear them every single round. I wear them. It seems funny, but like I kind of cycle my shoes a little bit. I've got some Adidas Terex. I just cycle them, and I actually like them enough. They tend to be minimalistic in my mindset, like lighter material. It's a pretty light shoe, a lot of tread on the bottom as far as like not cleats, but like it's got. Anyways, it's a good shoe. Everybody's experience is gonna be different. I think that's what the article points out. Evan, you had a follow up on Idio here, and we can move over into the generic portion of the shoes.
Yeah, one takeaway I had was the owner of Idio going through like Anthony Brella specifically, and I forget the technology that it was, but the Adidas shoes with like almost like the air pump, is that right? Something like that. Maybe off the
It's
top
like
of your head,
the
Jeff,
boost, the boost cushion or something. The boost.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wears,
that sounds
AB
right.
wears Ultra Boosts.
Yeah, boost. Yeah,
Ultra Boost. There we go.
Yeah.
So the type of shoe that is now built into his form, and so when he throws, he's expecting to have this type of boost coming from his shoe. That switching to Idio or a different type of shoe, you would have to rework his form. That was like something I would never have expected from being just an amateur level, who I'm like, yeah, I'll throw on any pair of shoe, whichever one's the most comfortable and durable, to be like, oh, my form changes based on my shoe. That was really interesting. And then the second thing I wanted to say was the owner talking about kind of his demographic, and going to pros, they were really picky, not just on style, as you mentioned, but also type, like Anthony Barella. And by your next article, which we'll get into, there was so many different styles that I think he was thinking towards going to an amateur market, or at least that's a part of it. Might be the largest one. I mean, you obviously have more people that are amateurs than pros, but I did find that really interesting that it might be the shoe of amateurs, just because at their level, you only can have one model, or you only can have one or two, that you cast the widest net to catch the most amount of fish. But so that brings me into your next article. And I wanted you just to give a quick overview of the different types of shoes maybe that pros were wearing at Worlds. I mean, just like when I heard zero drop for the first time, I had no clue what it was. So maybe just the different types in a basic sense like that.
Sure. So I divided the shoes in a couple different ways. Number one category put in is disc golf shoes, and that's one shoe. That's the Idio, the Syncrasy, which is their only model. Then the next one was hiking shoes. So think about the Terex. That's kind of like the classic disc golf hiking shoe that Macbeth really kind of put on the map as like the disc golf shoe. Interestingly enough, he was not wearing a Terex there because his Terexes broke in Europe, and so he had to buy another shoe, and he couldn't get any Terexes, so he got a Salomon. The next category was trail running shoes. So the Nike Pegasus something or other that's kind of the main trail running shoe that people liked. I can pull up the article real quick and tell you what that one is. A Nike Pegasus Trail 4. That's the most popular one there for trail running shoes. And then there's barefoot trail running shoes. The Vivo Barefoots are the most popular there, and those are zero drop shoes. They're barefoot shoes, and there's a kind of in the article I explain what's the difference between a zero drop and a barefoot shoe and all that. And then there's a category said others. And so the main thing in others are Vans, which are kind of its whole category in themselves. And then there was things like outliers, like Calvin's Nike Flyknit shoes. And then also Missy Gannon wears turf golf shoes for turf pads. So there's a little variety there, but those are the main categories.
Huh. Yeah, and I bought a pair of Terex back when Paul made them famous, and he was sponsored by Adidas. So it's very accurate. Like that's where I feel like the major inception came from for those shoes. The barefoot or the zero drops, my understanding is it's just the lacking of that arch support. It's more like it's a flat insole without the drop from heel to toe. It's like being barefoot inside of a shoe. And that sounds funny, but like right now, that's barefoot inside of a shoe. We all are. No. But like in all seriousness, there's this move towards that for a lot of people to go back to the original form of human walking, right? But doing it and protecting your feet at the same time. My brother, I think, he'll text me when he listens to this episode and confirm it, but I think he runs with zero drop in a lot of situations. He does trail running, he does road running, he's done 100 milers, but I think that's interesting. The big thing for me is waterproof. Did you find that? I think we saw that in your article. Like most people liked the fact that they could get waterproof shoes, but they also change depending on the conditions, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of change depending on the conditions. I will say one thing about a zero drop is a zero drop shoe can have padding. It's just not barefoot when it has the padding. So
Oh,
the barefoot shoes basically have larger toe boxes.
right.
They have almost no padding. You know, they're kind of very minimalist shoes. Whereas you can have something like an Ultra that's zero drop, but it's got like a healthy pad on it. So there's that. In terms of waterproof, you know, you guys were there at Worlds. It was raining, especially that day one, and I was taking. And there's some of the other days it was kind of muddy. So a lot of pros do like waterproof shoes, but you know, if it's not raining, then they might not wear them. You know, waterproof shoes don't breathe as well in general.
Mhm.
So some people just are just like, well, I'll just get my feet wet, and then at least the water's not kind of getting trapped in there. But you know, it's up to the pro. But there were a bunch of pros who were wearing different shoes on different days when I saw them.
And the two types of courses too, that you have a wooded, rocky, rooty course in Brewster Ridge, and then you have an open there we go, an open grassy course in Fox Run. So it's kind of the two opposite sides of the spectrum. We're only missing like a dirt goes like De La or something.
This probably needs not be said, but the amateur level between especially me, Ben, and Evan. Sorry, I included you, Ben. You know, we're getting there. But and Nick, I don't know, but like I do not know that big of a difference between my shoes and my throw. Like combined, I could like think about my shoes and how I like them, and like think about my throw. But like the combination of those two, like to the point that Anthony Barella made about his throw and his shoe, to where I'd be like, you know, I'm playing Brewster, so I want this shoe. I mean, I guess if I was really practicing, I might go between like a paver. And then I might say, I didn't like the way that shoe felt on those like turf tee pads. I might actually do that.
Worlds is a good example because you have pavers on one side and you have a nice turf on the other side. Like for me personally, I wear, you know, a pair of shoes that's a little bit more beat up on concrete pads because I know they're towards the end of its life. I don't have much more with these. I'm going to use those on the concrete pads. So, but
Daniel from Texas says he changes his shoes on every hole.
On every hole. Yeah. I mean, I've changed between rounds before. Yeah, I've changed between rounds before. I'll go from waterproof shoe in the morning, and then I'll use if it's the dew is cleared up or whatever, and it's nice and dry on the ground. I'll go to a more comfortable, lighter, more breathable shoe for the second round.
I gotta try that.
Yeah, but I also
you play Team Challenge, Matt. Do you wear like winter boots when you play in the snow? Or are you still wearing your normal?
I wear like the Adidas Terex, they're waterproof. I'll wear a nice layer, like a liner, and then like a nice sock, right? And then I'll wear gaiters so the snow doesn't get in. But no, I don't usually change up too much.
Realistically, a lot of it is also a comfort thing. With AB, it's comfort to his form now. If you think back on the Jonesboro playoff between Calvin and Paul, and Paul had kind of tripped up on the tee pad, Calvin was able to throw a nice smooth shot, ended up winning the playoff. What Calvin said afterwards, he was like, I don't wear an aggressive type of shoe as Paul does. Paul's always been wearing the Terexes, the trail running shoes, the ones with sturdy grip. And then you see Calvin's shoes. And, you know, we always make the joke that he looks like his ankles are about to blow out the sides of them. But I mean, at that point, it's just a comfort thing too. But for me, the biggest thing is what type of tee pad am I playing on? So if I'm playing on rubber mats and turf pads, then I like wearing a more comfortable shoe that I know is still going to get good grip on those tee pads. When I'm playing on pavers, I know, or pavers or even concrete pads, a lot of courses are going to concrete pads, which there's not a type of material out there yet that's going to last a long time on concrete pads. We play Buffinville a large majority of the time. I mean, it's all concrete pads there, and you just blow through shoes.
For Idio, that's one of their selling points, right, Jesse? They talk about I think they call it the drag on toe, like as in a play on dragon, but it's specifically for the bad habit of dragging your toes if you do that. I think this is all interesting, but I want people to go over and check out that article as opposed to giving them all the details. But is there any final takeaway, like just in this conversation before we move into the fandom survey, like something you just kind of want to summarize or anything at all about shoes that was interesting for you?
I would say like one of the most interesting things I found out is that things are moving towards barefoot. And so that's something to keep an eye on. If I written this article 2 years ago, 3 years ago, almost nobody probably would have been wearing barefoot shoes. I mean, Nick, you probably know better than I would, but that was kind of the sentiment I got was Seth Muncie told me that it was really, he trains people barefoot, like actually barefoot.
Mhm.
And that Eagle really liked that feeling.
Mhm.
And then he started experimenting with barefoot shoes. And Seth didn't really want to encourage people to use barefoot shoes on disc golf because he was worried about, these are pros. They're putting tons of force on their feet, like more so than, us normal people.
Yeah.
And that he was worried somebody was going to really hurt themselves wearing barefoot shoes.
Mhm.
But Eagle, experimented with it, liked it. And then Eagle, loved it so much that started wearing them. I guess he got a little deal he's probably got some kind of deal from Vivo.
Mhm.
And then other pros started copying Eagle, just like people copied Paul when Paul went to the Terex.
Mhm.
So, and it seems like a lot of players in their quotes told me that like that switch to barefoot was really a big change for them. And they really are glad they did it, that they just have a better feel for, everything. Like they're basically more touch with the ground.
Mhm.
I don't know. It felt like they were like more in control.
Specifically, yeah, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong because I don't have barefoot shoes, but like in the woods, trail, running, all that kind of stuff, it's really great. Lets you feel really closer to what you're on, as opposed to just like a pavement hitting it hard and flat. Yeah.
Was anyone wearing Vibram 5 finger, 5 toes? Just thinking
Hannah
back to like 10 years
Macbeth,
ago.
Hannah Macbeth back in 2010. There you go.
Yep.
Or
Oh,
I have a
2000.
friend who still wears them, and he's the mayor. He was the mayor of his, or basically the equivalent of the mayor, president of his town. And he wears them constantly. He owns a very big company, and he wears them to like very important big meetings. He's wearing 5 fingers everywhere.
I never got into those. They did not me.
I just called out Hannah. That's the bat signal for Hannah. I can't wait for her to chime in here and be like, Matthew Graham, how did you tell everybody? But that's how she started. No, that is one of the things I remember about her starting in disc golf. All that being said, I'm still rehabbing my ankle for those who are at all even in the background of your head. This is 4.5 months later or longer now. And part of my thought process here is shoes, because I'm thinking about strengthening and maybe doing some running. I got to find a good pair of shoes, but it goes into like when I was wearing the Idios. They're pretty tight and compact, as shoes should be, in my opinion. But I was wearing like a light ankle brace, and I know I saw Paige doing this too. Like it was really tough to pack it all in there, but interesting. Shoes are a great conversation, and I thought the article was interesting, unique, well done, and something that others should go and check out. They should just go visit UltiWorld and look for that. Is that the best way, easiest way?
Yeah, it's if you look on the main menu, or if you look for, Jesse Weiss disc golf shoes, maybe you'll find it that way. But yeah, it's somewhere there on UltiWorld.
All right, well, if you're ready, let's go ahead and move us into the fandom survey portion, where we get to talk about the players that were voted in as the fan favorites and a lot more. But stick around, because you're going to find out if you haven't seen it yet. It just released a couple hours ago before our live show. Who's at the bottom of this list and who's at the top of this list, and where do you want to be and why are you there? I mean, there's a lot we want to break down here. I have a whole bunch of thoughts and questions. Evan, I know you thought about this. Nick and Ben, it just dropped before the show. I don't have any expectations that you got to it. Nick's blasting rocks. He's not reading.
I got to it.
All right. Well, we're going to see here. So you were on the show talking about this survey, so we don't have to get into a whole bunch, because a lot of our listeners know, and I saw in the article that a good amount came from the Nick and Matt show. 200 or 300, if I'm not mistaken, submitted survey results for you coming on the show here. So our audience understands this was feedback to understand as much as we could about why people are the way they are, and what people like and who they like, and how does that correlate. That's all very interesting. They can find this article, both of them, the people who were doing these votes, as well as now who did they vote for. Both of those are up right now. And so I'm not quite sure where we want to start with this, so I'll let you intro it. Like, I don't know where I have questions, but I just want to let you intro this concept of where you're at.
Sure. So we released 2 articles today.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is we don't really know when to publish this one, because it's basically the demographics that we received for all of our fan survey. Because it's important for people to know what are the sample sizes, what's the political skew, what's, where are people coming from. So we released all of that in one article that may or may not be interesting to you. The article that people actually want to read, that we're really promoting today, is the who do fans root for and root against. So that's kind of the main article, and that's one of the many questions that we ask on our fan survey. So this is going to be the first of, I don't know how many articles we're going to come out with, but it's going to be at least 5 or 6 articles as far as I'm planning. And usually, it ends up being more than I want to write. But right now, that's kind of where it's looking at. And we've got this one's on the players. And then I can talk later on about what the other ones will be about.
Okay, so when we talk about players as a baseline for those who haven't read the article, the voting system is typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, 0 to 10. 0 being either anti or non-existent kind of a thing, 5 being neutral, and 10 being extremely positive or in favor of. Is that generally correct?
0 is rooting against.
Rooting against.
We don't want to say dislike or hate or anything like that, because that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
You can root against somebody and think that they're, a really nice person. There are players who I root against who I really like as people. I just like rooting against them as a fan. And then 10 is, your absolute, somebody you're rooting for as hard as possible. And then 5 is kind of neutral. And so anything below 5 is you're rooting against them to some degree, and anything above 5, you're rooting for them to some degree.
Can we do next year media personalities in disc golf? Can we add that to see how much people hate me?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean,
So we do have commentators as part of the survey, and that's going to be one of the articles about all the DGN and Jomez commentators.
Okay, yeah, we see
we don't have media personalities yet.
yet. I just want to see if it's actually true the correlation between those who talk the most are the most disliked, and those. Anyways, that's a whole thing I've thought of. Okay,
I think you're going to find a lot of 5s for most people in media, and it's going to really make them sad, because like on the graphs, if you look at a distribution, it looks like a middle finger. It's just this big 5 going up, and this year a bunch of
Laurie Lennon
got a middle finger, and Lori Lightman got a middle finger, and on commentators, Grant Zellner got one, and then DGA has gotten one for manufacturers. So those are kind of I have no idea what you're talking about. Who's this?
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you brought that up. So 0, I'm glad you specified what that meant. 0. You're right. It's not hate. It's not we're rooting against as a fan.
Yeah,
so
my goal is to be a giant U, just like you either hate me or you love me. No one's in the middle.
Evan, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things that I kind of came up with as I was reading through this is like, and I'm interested in breaking this down a little bit, Jesse, to see what your opinions are on this, because it felt like there was definitely a correlation between possibly being somebody's favorite player, literally like I'm typing down my favorite player is, and filling in a blank, and being asked about a player. There's a difference there, because, and I'll pull it up now, Paul Macbeth. Where does he fall in your rank, right? As far as like fandom survey, what number was that? Is he like 10th, 11th, 15th?
Up right here. He was
so just to clarify, we asked the question 2 different ways. You're right, Matt.
Right.
So what we ask is a 0 to 10 for each of the players.
Right.
But then we're also asking, who is your absolutely favorite player?
Later. So you're right. Yeah. You asked them about like a list of what was it? 30, 40 players, right? Or more.
Yeah. Basically everybody in the survey, we ask who is your favorite player.
Right.
And then we also ask you to do 0 to 10. So this way we can get an idea of relative popularity of all the players.
Yes.
And then we can also get an idea of who are the most popular players in the sport, using kind of these 2 different ways of looking at it. A more traditional one is who's your favorite player, and then a more statistical way of doing that is using a Likert scale, a 0 to 10 scale.
But so Evan, you said 19th in his average rank or rating that people did for him, Paul Macbeth.
Yeah, his average.
19th average. What was his number? Average? It was,
I think it was 6.66.
6.66.
It's kind of funny, Mr. McBeast.
Yeah, that's funny, the beast. But here's my point. And there's something interesting about this. And Jesse, you probably can enlighten us, or Evan, you're probably giving you have the similar thoughts on this. When asked those same people who are ranking players, who is your favorite player? Paul is 3rd place.
Yeah.
And so I have some thoughts on this, and let me just share it and then tell me if I'm way off here. Paul's been around a while. He's grown a significant fan base during his tenure of dominance. and those people are still bought in that that's their favorite player. Like, it's hard to come to a favorite player until they've you've established it. I am their fan and they've done amazing things. That's who I'm going to say every time I'm asked. And so for Paul, let's just say to fall off as like a general rule of people rating and ranking him, like there's still that core that he has that's like, but he is my favorite player. And like, to me, there's a difference between polling the, 3,000 and something people and saying, just evaluate how you feel about all these players, and then saying who is your favorite. I think it's interesting because, and this was to Evan's point, if you're in the middle and people are picking 5s for you, they feel indifferent, right? So it could be easy for a player to, in the average scope here, find themselves right in the middle. Nobody knows or loves you. Nobody knows and rooting against you. Those players are not going to be favorite players. Even though you might have like a generally okay number right around where Paul McBeth is, right at that like 20 to 25 mark, they're not going to be a favorite player. But he had been long enough in this role of fan favorite for long enough that he's still a favorite player, even though he's not getting ranked that way in the general survey. That's a lot I said. You have to read the article yourself. Any reaction to that, Jesse?
Yeah, Paul, Ricky, Paige, they have very flat distributions. So there's people who feel about them in many different ways, and that's because people actually have feelings about them. There's a lot of players where it's like, I don't have any negative feelings about this person. I hardly know them. There's nothing for me to root against. Whereas Paul's been beating everybody else's favorite players for a decade now. Yeah. And same thing with Paige. So that engenders, can engender negative feelings from a lot of fans. Mm-hmm. So, that's why Paul isn't as popular. Now, last year he was much more popular. He was higher up in rank last year. His fandom score fell a bunch this year. And why that is, we can, there's a couple things we can guess about that. But one of the ways we look at the data is we can also look at age and see the age of the fans and also how long they've been following disc golf. Now, Paul's much more popular with older fans, with fans who've been following the sport longer. It's the newer fans. And, if you look at our survey data, we haven't released, when people started following disc golf, but a lot of people started following in 2020, 2021, 2022. And so a lot of these people did not see dominant Paul McBeth. Mm-hmm. And so they don't have quite the same feelings that maybe people who started, pre-pandemic, how they feel about Paul. So I guess that's a long-winded answer to explain that, how people feel about Paul is they have feelings about Paul, whereas they don't necessarily have feelings about a lot of these other players that are as
exactly.
complex.
And we know where Evan said he wants to be. And before we move into other questions here, which is this could go on all night. There's so much insight here we could look into. You gave, I think, more insight there than I read in your article, meaning Paul's more of a fan favorite amongst those maybe who are older or been in disc golf longer. You have this all piled up in your brain right now and probably on your computer. I appreciate that. So we can ask these questions and maybe get some more insight here. You did everything from finding out people's how they would describe themselves as being religious, like from like I'm very religious, not religious, whatever. You're asking questions that I think would be interesting at some level. You mentioned Alden Harris and Gannon Burr as maybe being more likely to have a religious following. It sounds funny to say it that way, but like people who would say that they were religious at some level would be more likely, or they have a higher level of following for those players. What are you doing? Are you going to sit here all winter and just look at the correlations? Like there's so much data here and it's interesting for those who like to do it.
It's in so much data and there's so much that I could, that article, if you look at the article, it's really, really long. And I just put in a fraction of what I could have put in that article. And so we'll have some other articles that'll specifically look at religion. Like, for example, one of the things, if you look at Isaac Robinson and then you look at preference gaps between people who are not religious and people who are religious, 0 religiosity, 1 religiosity up to 10 religiosity. Mm-hmm. You look at it, it looks like a rainbow. It goes, the more religious you are, the more you like Isaac Robinson. So there's certain players where there is this huge religious correlation. And then if you take a player like Thomas Gilbert or Paige Pierce they're going to have the opposite rainbow because they identify as gay, and that's for a lot of the religious fans, that's not something that they like.
Mhm.
So there's like one way to describe how much data we have. I was speaking with an owner of a disc golf company, and about the data, and he mentioned that he really liked MVP's branding. He said it was really smart that they have the science branding. He bets that they get a lot of people who like science and math. And we happened to ask on the survey, what was your favorite subject matter in high school? Which I thought was kind of a silly question to ask. But I was immediately able to create for him a graph that showed exactly how popular
baby.
each brand was based on what your favorite subject matter was in high school. And of course, MVP was way up there. They had
Come on.
significantly higher than any other company. We'll put that in the next article. So I guess I don't want to step on
Holy
that too
cow,
much,
man!
but
This
we have
is
so much
marketing
data.
genius. This is marketing
Yeah.
genius. Like you're going to be able to sell this data at some point to like marketers or companies. Like they want to know this. They probably already know who they're marketing to. I mean, to be fair, they probably do. But that is interesting. Here's one for you. I don't know how difficult it is to accomplish. I know like Statmando does query codes and all this stuff. They can just figure it out. But is it manually, like how hard is this to do? Where you could be like, okay, so out of all the people who voted Paul McBeth as their favorite player, I want to see how they also like felt about Ricky Wysocki. And is there a correlation between you like Paul and you don't like Rick, right? Like those kinds of things. I mean, it's probably pretty easy to see, but man, do you have people working with you or is it just you like going in? Because there's so much, as you said.
About the Ricky versus Paul, we wrote about that in last year's Fandom survey. So if you look at the 2020, 2022, we have a heat map and showing exactly, the ratio of people who hate Ricky and love Paul and vice versa. And then people who love them both, people who hate them both. We've got it like a heat map of all that. Like the strike zone heat maps.
Right. I do remember that now. Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of how hard this is to handle, I mean, I'm not great with Excel or Google Sheets. I'm learning as I go, but a lot of the Statmando people have been helping me out. So just so many people on their team that have been really helpful. And there's been a kind of a core that have been working with me on this. Doug, Josiah, and Josh, and
Carl.
And Carl, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Carl.
that's kind of been my my core of people who've been helping me work on the database. And then what we're trying to do is make it so that next year, all the formulas are already in there. And so as the servers are coming in, it's going to populate all these different tabs
There
on our
you go.
sheets. Because it took me a month to process all the data after we closed the Fandom survey. Now I'm finally getting to actually writing them. We're hoping that we're going to do all of that ahead of time so that we can release these articles earlier, and also so we have information for the industry earlier.
Wow. Okay, so let's do two things. Let's do this little hype and exciting. Who got number 1, number 2, number 3? Let's go to third place. Fandom vote. Who's got third place, Jesse? Do you know it off the top of your head? It's like I got so much
Off my head,
information.
I think I know who it is.
I have
Are you
not
guys quizzing me on my article?
We're quizzing you on your article. I know the top 2, and I'm I know third. I know the third. I got it. Am I correct in saying Calvin Heimberg?
It is Calvin Heimberg, yes.
Okay, good. And number 2, everybody being relinquished from their number 1 and reigning spot. What's the word I'm looking for here? I picked on her a lot this year. Kristen Tatar.
Yeah.
She moved down one, and that's probably no thanks to me saying, hey, it's boring to watch, but she went down one notch. And then in number 1, we have, do you guys know who it is?
Yeah.
Nico no, I'm kidding. Simon Lizotte. All right, let's just say congrats to Simon on that. I mean, it's not something he's probably trying to achieve. He's trying to be a good person, good content,
I think it just naturally.
and it happened.
Yeah, exactly.
He might even be embarrassed by it.
If
he's
you
like,
asked him,
there's
he'd
so
be
many
like,
more
oh,
likable
yeah,
people.
yeah, exactly.
I'm glad you said that, Evan, because that was my follow-up here is like, how do you feel as a player? I'm talking specifically on this positive end right now, to find that you have so much fan support. Is there anything that stands out to you, Jesse? Have you thought about that? Like, what does it mean for these players when they see that? Or is that not a really a good data point? Like, what do you think their reactions are?
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't want to hurt anybody's feelings with this. That's definitely not my intention. So I hope nobody,
I mean, specifically here on the positive end. I hope that doesn't hurt
Sure.
their feelings to know they
on
got
the
fans.
positive end,
Yeah.
well, I think it's probably great to hear, and it's also great to bring the manufacturer that you work with and
Yes.
say, hey, look, I'm one of the most popular players in the sport. And we have so much data, we can slice it a million different ways and say that they're popular with this segment, they're popular in this part of the country. They're popular with people who earn over $150,000. Like, there's a million different ways we can slice this data that is really useful for players and manufacturers to make decisions on, who to sign with.
Yeah, and
And
so
we can get more about and when we get to the next article about manufacturers. But I think there's a lot of positive there. And if we go to the negative side, I think that for some players, maybe this is a reality check. This is, okay, if I want to be popular, if I want to sell more discs, if I want to make more money, then maybe I need to change certain things about how I act on the course or off the course.
let's move it there in about 30 seconds to the negative side, because I say negative. This was people who were voting against, right? That's what we said. That's how we're wording this.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Rooting against, yeah. But before we move there, a little bit of a negative. There's always this, like, someone peed in my soup or my Cheerios kind of a thing. But for Simon, I think I noticed, and my math might have been off, but he might have had about 20 people give him a 0. Do you think that was accidental?
No, but I mean, a lot of people are contrarians, and Simon's not everybody's going to love Simon. 20
What?
people out of
20
3,000
people.
20 people out of 3,040 people are not going to like Simon. That's just the way it is. That's the way the math.
That makes me feel better about myself.
There's always going to be one jealous person out there who is just jealous of something that someone else is achieving in life, which
Do you think that's
easily,
jealous?
I think
Or do you think there's just something that rubs him wrong about
I think majority of it is jealousy.
You can't dislike Simon.
You can if you're jealous of what
Okay.
he has.
I think you could also make the argument that if you're like the hardest core Dismedia fan and you're like, no matter
So
what,
pissed off that he left.
then you could be upset that he left. Now, like, I
It
don't
might have
think
been
many did
Eagle that
that.
put the 0 there. We don't know, but I'm just kidding.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But it was 0.7%, or I think that was correct, 0.7% of, and I just estimated it. I know not everybody voted for everybody. I saw that, criteria in there, but generally it's probably in that 20 persons or people voted that way. So I thought that was interesting. It's somebody that got shafted like at an event. They waited in line. He never showed up to the autograph tent. They're like a 0. Like
It could be.
things like that. It's for what it's worth. If 3,000 people and 20 people say they don't like him, that's winning. The more people that know you, the more people that dislike you or are rooting against you, to have 20, that's a win.
One thing about Simon,
Go
I
ahead.
want to say is it's kind of mathematically improbable, but he had an 8.98 average last year of his fandom score. It's 8.99 this year.
Wow.
So for it to be within 2 decimals, it's just a kind of crazy that it's exactly the same level of popularity he had last year.
That is a great point.
And
Yep.
just to say, you see people rise up and drop off depending on winning events or being on coverage a lot. Like Isaac Robinson shot up the most, obviously winning Worlds, being a much improved player. But Simon, after not dropping off after his meteoric. Why can't I speak?
I don't even know what word you're trying to say.
Meteoric. Thank you.
Thank you. I still feel like that's wrong. But anyways, he had a great season in 2022. It's really hard to follow that up. No one else got 4 elite or major wins this season in MPO to get more fandom while having a, let's say, worse season just based on wins. I think it's really impressive.
Big switch. And then also, one of those 0s could have been someone who didn't make the shot of the day vlog. They submitted it and they didn't get chosen, and there you go. They didn't get the shot of the day. Boom, 0 for Simon.
Ben, you posted a video of an ace. Did you get on shot of the day?
I'll be on the next video shot of the day. which is coming soon.
So you wish.
Yeah, so you wish
Yeah.
you.
I will be.
I'm just kidding.
I bet that
I'm
video doesn't even
kidding.
come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
File
Watch video of the
corrupted.
year.
Yeah.
It might not come out. We'll see.
Okay. Moving down officially, I don't have this like scary music to move down. I should have set that up. But moving down to the rooting against players, there's a little bit of interest here, I think, to go to both sides of the spectrum, positive and against. Both of them are really cool information to have. I think if you're a player, you take it to your sponsor if you're at the top. And if you're a player at the bottom of this, you don't take it to your sponsor, but you work extremely hard with somebody to figure out how to change this for yourself. And I don't want to say it goes without saying, but I did this as a test tonight with my family. And I said, anybody have an idea who's at the bottom? They didn't have a guess for the bottom officially. I said Natalie Ryan. And they said, oh, it makes sense when you think about all the stuff that went down this year, right? Whether or not you have an actual understanding of that person, who they are, what they're like off the course, what you do know about them was a lot of conflict, right? And so that's hard to, unless you're in their shoes or you're very close friends, you're probably not rooting for that to happen. And so it's hard to do that. Now, we'll just move along from Natalie Ryan being at the bottom there. So I'll say who is next. And my wife says out loud, Nico LaCastro. And I said, wow, you got it. So like, it seems pretty obvious that might be the case out of the list of people who might be at the bottom. But here you go. Moving along from those two. The third from the bottom. Chat. If you read the article, you'll probably get this. But if you didn't read it, guess who you think's third from the bottom? You're listening at home.
Joel.
Who's this player? Is that your guess? Did you read the article?
Nope.
Let's do sad piano. So Joel Freeman, everybody, finds himself at the essence, the bottom of this chart. Now, what is it about Joel that you think is creating this? Because we asked, what is it about Simon? I think, what is our perspective here? Does that seem accurate? You guessed it. So like, what is it?
Well, like we've been saying, you're kind of rooting against this person. It's not necessarily that you strongly dislike them,
Right.
but you're rooting against them. I think Joel, with tournaments that he's played well at or didn't play well at, the post that he makes afterwards, some people find it, let's say cringy or whiny or anything like that. And when you kind of get a whiny sports player, it's very, very easy to root against that person. Another person that comes up into mind, and when you see it on the tour scene of things, but Eric Oakley for a while would have a couple outbursts here and there during tournaments, but then make an apology post after. But then next tournament comes by, another outburst, another apology post, another outburst, another apology post. You kind of see those things. And so it's very easily turning into, well, now I just want to root against this person because they're, annoying me or anything like that. So that's where I see, one of the things like Joel Freeman's post after the Lake Marshall Open was he played the Lions course 3 rounds, which is like a par 70, par 72, beautifully designed layout. He said, I struggle sometimes on easy courses after getting smacked at that tournament by, I think Luke Sampson and Chris Dickerson, Luke going on to win the event. It was kind of just like, especially for a lot of people in Virginia, it was like, bro, that course isn't easy. And how do you say like you play bad at easy courses? That's just a cover up of you just had a bad tournament. And you can have, it's an excuse thing. We want to see these competitors as, they're up on a pedestal. We don't want to see excuses. We just want to see you come out and play your absolute best. And that's a lot of thing when players come up. This happened, even with Paul sometimes. A lot of people will take Paul's, posts after tournaments as, was that an excuse? Is this an excuse? It's definitely an excuse, something like that. And I think that's also where fandom goes out the window sometimes, is when you find a pro player that maybe you did like, start making excuses, or someone that you already don't really care to root for. Now you just have all the more reason not to root for them.
Yeah. It's interesting because I kind of know Joel off the course a little bit. I've hung out, I've done some things with him. So I do know him a little bit off the course, but my on the course experience, if I just keep it at that, because that's the perspective here of the people who are voting in most scenarios, I'm sure. There's a little bit of uptightness to your point. It's the reactions to something happening of like being frustrated is one thing, right? But to carry over this, like either it's somebody else's fault or something else's fault and not mine kind of feeling, it does create that. So not to pick on or belabor this, but just to kind of see like, whatever it is for why people are doing this information is so valuable that when I read this, I thought to myself, this is a major like opportunity because you're literally getting like a 3,000 person poll to be like, this is a player that I'm not rooting for. Like, wow.
It's also a religion thing. A lot of players who have won this year that are religious people, I've seen a lot of comments afterwards be like, man, I loved that player's speech until they said they thanked God for that win, or like, thank God for giving the blessings in their life and stuff like that. I do think it's also, as a more outspoken religious person, you are going to be scrutinized a little bit more from that. A little bit more from, it feels as though people are a little bit more outspoken when it comes to those kind of things. So it's a lot.
The ones who say be less judging are judging the most.
Yeah.
I've got
Go ahead.
A good stat for you here.
Yeah.
Speaking of Joel Freeman, we also have source data. So we can look at all of the different media companies. Sorry, can you read?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just excited where you're going with this.
So we can look at all the different, where people found out about our survey. And then we can also look at all of their demographics and what they think about those players. So fun fact, Nick and Matt Show listeners like Joel Freeman, or actually dislike Joel Freeman less than every other media source. So
wow, this data is incredible.
Yeah, the whole pool average, so everybody combined, the 3,040 people, gave him a 3.55 out of that 0 to 10, on average a 3.55. For Nick and Matt Show, you guys gave him, the fans of Nick and Matt Show, 4.31, which is 0.76 higher than the average. So
listen,
the next higher.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
go
you
ahead.
guys have done something.
Well, I just want to say,
dislike them less.
I want to say, and I could be very wrong. I have done no research. Anybody in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. We did an interview with Joel Freeman on the show 2 times, I think. I do not know that he has been on Smashbox or Foundation.
I was going to say, we gave him an opportunity to speak. And when you hear someone speak in person like that, I think
I think the listeners
Jesse's
saw a different side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Giving someone a platform to maybe even defend, because I'm pretty sure on the show he was talking about, he knows he struggles with these things. And then you're kind of rooting for that. It's like, hey, I hope you get better. Like,
so what you just, I have to be like, I have to take this and apply it to the show that we are running here. I just said how valuable this information is to the player. Man, if I take this as marketing data, I got to buy this off of you. If I take this as marketing data to the players we interview, sometimes we'll try to line up an interview, and I hate to say it, but like sometimes they're like, like it's not going to work. And I go, listen, people who listen to you on our show, we have the data to prove that those people, whether it's correlation or causation or whatever, like those people are more likely to see you positively when we interview you. That's interesting. What else were you going to say, Jesse?
Well, he's less popular with other forums, but that's a very good point there, is that, we could, in theory, if you bring somebody on your show, and then we could look at their fan scores before and after,
right, in that
same year, and we could see what kind of impact it has on your fans in terms of how they feel about that player. Like that's things. And by the way, it's all free, so we're not charging anybody for this data.
Yeah.
And if Matt, if you want to meet, I will show you the back end. We can show you everything about your source data, about all sorts of things. I'm happy to share this information with anybody.
Like things like who's the fan favorite amongst Nick and Matt Show, right? Like who ranked the highest? Is it Paul Macbeth? We talk about him a fair amount. Like who is it, right? That's interesting.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly who has the biggest outlier effect for Nick and Matt Show. And
I almost want to say it's going to be someone like Ricky. I say that the reason being is because the times that we've had Ricky on, and we've had him on a lot of times, Ricky has become such a fun interview and such an enjoyable time to talk to. If anything, I think Gannon gets disliked more or rooted against because of how bad his service is whenever we have him on the friggin' show.
True. That's Gannon. I'm gonna hang out with Gannon next week, actually. Yeah. So you were looking it up, Jesse. Did you have?
Oh yeah, I can tell you. So Gannon, you guys give Gannon the biggest boost. So it's a 0.48 boost above average for Gannon. So
how does that taste, Nick?
You guys are helping with Gannon.
All right.
You guys are in the red for Ricky, so it's a 0.07. It's like 0.07 is basically, even with the average. So
Yeah.
You
So
guessed
that
it
was so
exactly,
I was just exactly
opposite.
opposite. The two people. That's
Holy
so
cow.
funny.
Wow,
Now,
that
you're
is
never gonna
interesting.
guess your biggest boost. You'll never guess it. It's Emerson Keith.
Really?
0.97. So
Sick.
has Emerson been on the show? Does that prove?
No.
I was gonna
maybe
okay.
once.
after it must have been after
One
OTB Open.
One time I think he has. Yeah. But that's interesting. I do not know what that says about our fans. Hey, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
That's-
no, but don't make this out to be that your fans like Emerson Keith.
Yeah. They start rooting for
he's
him.
at a-
Yeah, like-
don't even think like they're rooting for them. Your fans have given them on average a 5.37, so barely above neutral. It's just all the other fans of the other media organizations, they're rooting against him.
For instance, what if Terry Miller, which he obviously doesn't, but what if Terry Miller just hated on Emerson Keith every single episode? Like, this person lost him on the final stroke, like Emerson Keith would have done. Like, of course, that's not really true. But if Terry did that every time, the Smashbox listeners might root against Emerson Keith more often because they hear the negativity. So not that all
I have a
other
question.
podcasts hate on Emerson Keith.
Are you
but-
unmuted?
Go ahead, Ben.
No, I just have a question. I know it's outlined in the survey, but do you think some people are voting, like Emerson Key, for example, he's not as popular as a disc golfer. Do you think some people are using the 0 to 4 range as like, I don't really care about him, but I don't really know about him, so I'm gonna rather than root against, more as a, I don't really care about him at all because I don't really know who he is how he plays because he's not that popular. So I'm gonna give him like a.
I'm going to let
0
Jesse
to
answer
4.
that officially, but my takeaway when I looked at it was pretty obvious. If it's less than 5, I actually am rooting against them at some level. 5 is neutral. Is how I read that. Is that what you think was happening, Jesse? He was asking if
I'm
you
just
think
saying, like,
people were-
hypothetically, like Emerson Keith, I wouldn't. He's a person. The reason I'm saying is he's a person on a tour that I wouldn't think that people would be rooting against. I just think he's not as popular as a disc golfer, so that might be a reason why. Like, for example, Nico LaCastro makes sense, but him, it doesn't make sense to me because what is he won? He won a event, but it's not like he's outspoken or anything. He's just
I've got
a dude.
an answer for you there.
Thank you.
If we look at the source data again, he's incredibly unpopular with Reddit. So he's got a minus 1.38. So why is that important?
I don't know.
On Reddit, there was a bunch of scandals involving Emerson Keith that came out on Reddit. And I didn't know about these because I don't follow Reddit that closely. But when I had posted something on the Discord, like the Ulti-World Discord, kind of asking about, Emerson Keith, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, there's all sorts of controversies. I don't want to go into those because I don't really know the details of them."
Oh, see, I didn't know
But those
that.
were discussed on Reddit, and they weren't discussed necessarily on other media. It wasn't picked up by other media. So people who find out about us through Reddit, they may have been exposed to some of those controversies.
That makes sense. Yeah, people are in the chat are telling me now. That makes a lot more sense because at first I thought it was just like, that's kind of random. I feel like he doesn't do anything.
The data
but
knows
that
more
makes
than
sense.
you, Ben, and it knows more than me too. I'm not calling you out specifically. Just it speaks.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that is we're not going to keep everybody forever on that. But if you do find any cool other nuggets related, those were really cool. But if you ever find any more, send them our way, or I'll take a look through it too. We have access to it. Yeah.
Thousands of them. Like it's frustrating how much data there is. And it's just, I can't share everything. So,
I know
the articles would be, too long. So,
wow.
we're trying to pick these things out. What are the gems? But there's so much in there.
Yeah.
So-
are you looking for assistant writers, Jesse, or any help?
Absolutely. If anybody wants to volunteer, especially if you're like a sociologist or you like do polling, if those kinds of skills would be really great to actually have professionals, because I'm very much an amateur, learning as I go. So we'd love expertise. People who actually like to write. I don't really enjoy writing. People who enjoy this, great, come on board. We're looking for people. So feel free to get in touch with us. My email address is in each article, so you can write to me.
Something else that stood out to me, and before I got to that point in the article, I had already wrote my question down, then it was answered for me, because you're really good at what you do. Is the correlation to like a win and an increase in fandom, and the fact that Matteo won somewhere in the middle point, let's say, of this survey at MVP Open. So people were voting and then he wins, and then the voting was still open. And you looked at those data points separately on either side, and you noticed an increase of favoritism or fan voting at a higher level. It makes sense. And before the show, Ben and I were talking. So to be at the top, you got to win and be likable. Like, so you got to be Simon Lizotte. Like that is the criteria. And I think this is interesting talking point. If you are wanting to be in disc golf, you either have to be a superhuman, like, and just win everything. And you can still be unliked for the most part. Like, you don't have to have a great personality, but win everything. And people like winning. But if you can do both, then that's where you get the mega massive good contracts eventually. So that's the winning criteria. So is that accurate? I mean, it seems like, did you find any other correlation to that? Like, it seems to me like the winners typically are at the top, or you're extremely likable.
I mean, I think winning is, yes, very important. And especially for some, you have to take Matteo, who was kind of the, always the bridesmaid. And that probably made people like, I mean, Matteo's got a great personality. And for most people, some people, it's not their cup of tea, but for most of our fans, they love Matteo. But I think people kind of held back from giving him those 10s because it's like, well, he can't win it. And so, that might be, that was kind of holding it back. And then after he won, his fandom score went up by like 9% something for people voting after he won. And so he got that monkey off his back. And so we'll see if that carries on until next year. Is that one win enough that people have kind of, don't count that against him anymore? Or does it need to be sustained winning? But I think one thing that's really important is just visibility. If you're showing up on cards, that's going to keep you popular. And if you're not showing up on cards, then you're going to lose popularity. Like, Paige's popularity went down a bunch this year. Paul's did. They weren't on many cards. Ricky missed a good chunk of the season. His popularity went down, but that also might be a changing of the guard phenomenon,
right?
Where we've got, these, the young guns and, new fans and young fans may just want to see the old guys, go away and make room for the new exciting players.
Yeah. And so there was two players that specifically two, I could bring up 3 or 4 here, but Paul Ulibarri not winning, at least on the Elite Series, and Jeremy Colling, right? And you see them, and Ezra Aderhold. Now, I would bring Brody into this because he's not winning either, but he already came in with a big social following. But they are something interesting between all of them. I think it's pretty obvious. They're on media coverage, and they're able to show their personality and be that likable person, whether they're winning or not. They are fun to watch and participate in through viewing. So I think that also goes to that point. To get at the very top, I don't think you're going to see, just frankly, like Paul Ulibarri ever be at the very top of this fandom list, but he's pretty high for what it's worth. I think it's extremely high for not having the wins. So, good job to him for that. But what else here? Oh, this just stood out to me, and I just want reactions from the room here, or the group. Kevin Jones is, in my mind, higher on this list than I would have ever put him in this fandom survey. Isn't he he's 7.1 was his average. And is he in the top 10 or top, where is he? 11. Okay. He's right about there.
And he moved up 6 spots this year.
Yes. And this is not a dislike for Kevin. And now maybe there's a funny correlation here, Jesse. We've never had Kevin Jones on the show. So maybe there's something about them moving up if they don't come on the show. No, I'm kidding. But in all seriousness, just like, I don't know. He does have that coverage with the OTB skins. Maybe that's where you see him a lot. Or GK Pro, sorry.
I think it's personality, personally.
But where do you see him so much?
Well, I feel like we saw him a lot, not as much this season, but season before, he was like coming in like almost winning. I think maybe it was last season or where he's almost winning. one time he just like 5-putted
He
it.
almost won Jonesboro,
Yeah,
and then it was Portland Open. But
yeah,
then this year
he-
he almost won LVC.
So I think it's his personality, 1, and 2. I think people just loved him. He was a huge fan favorite. He wasn't as covered as much this year, but I think his personality was enough to hold him over for this year. I think if it keeps going on, I think it will drop off, whereas he's not showing up.
But he moved up this year.
I think it'll drop back down is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he moved up, but I'm like looking at like Weisz is like 2 points below him, more or less, like close, like like average, right in the middle, 5, which is almost that neutral, like boring. We don't even think about you kind of thing. And I'm like, it just seems so.
I think
odd
that
to
goes
me.
to show you where or how much notoriety the GK Pro skins has.
Yeah.
Yeah,
realistically,
that's a good point.
Because it is.
So-
There's a
so,
place for
yeah.
him to show his
Like
personality.
people will say that, like
Personality, yeah.
Daniel saying in the chat, the banter, is pretty popular with him and Luke. He's on a lot of the episodes. He's, very, very good friends, if not best friends with Luke Humphreys. So you have these
Media
guys
exposure.
going, yeah, exactly. The media exposure aspect of it.
Mm.
Now, when it comes to playing on lead cards or anything like that, we did not see a lot of it this year compared to in years past. But
We should have did this survey right after Waco, Nick, just to see if you got a bump. When you got on the lead card, people got to know you a little bit. That spotlight and Jomez.
The spotlight was the only good thing about that coverage. Yeah, I think people would have been
the
like, "How the
first
hell
round-
did he get there?"
Without you, just seeing Carl -1 or whatever
We
it
were
was.
hyped. We were
It was,
hyped
it was a
in the
tough
chat.
round. Obviously, you shoot
We're
better
like,
than -8.
Nick of the Nick and
I
Matt
also
show,
said
baby.
Yeah,
And he was
I'd
winning.
also say Kevin Jones is a very fun player to watch.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Ooh, the
I
grenade.
have-
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the grenade shots that he does, the super hyzer flip shots that he does. He is an enjoyable player to watch play the sport. And some people would say,
I was, and I wasn't trying to bring any data of my own insight to this. It was more surprised because I don't feel like I saw him very much.
Mhm.
And maybe that's because this is a point. I love GK Pro, and maybe that's the only place I saw him, but like I didn't tie a lot to him as a storyline this year. That's just my perspective. And so that's great. He's maintaining,
For
or
me-
in this case, he boosted. So.
for me, I can't do the Facebook posts or the Instagram posts.
Would
Him-
you have rated him,
him and
5?
Probably below, just because of when I read those posts, I just cringe a little on the inside, but it just is what it is.
There's
My
so
own-
much.
My own opinion to
There's
that.
so much for
But,
branding
yeah.
here.
I think he's a very fun player to watch, though. I will say that when I do get to see him play, when he's putting from 36 feet and he's got that smooth jump putt, I think, I almost feel like he's going to make that putt more than the 23 footer that he might have on the next hole or something like that. And so I do like watching
Absolutely.
his style of play.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You obviously got to think that how often does his ace circulate on hole 16 circulate throughout the year? Consistently it comes up to where it goes almost mini viral
2018?
again. What's that?
2018, you said?
No, I'm
the
saying on
ace-
hole 16. His
Oh my-
ace
I
on hole
misheard
16.
all of that. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Wow.
sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been up since 4, so I notice I kind of mumble a little bit right now. But anyway, I'm trying my best. But yeah, obviously it's the same thing with James Conrad. His shot circulates how many times throughout the year from 2021 Worlds, and people see that.
That
and
was
they're like,
another
"Oh my
player
gosh,
that I saw
yes."
higher up, and I was like,
Exactly.
man, I'm like, let me be clear. People think I hate Calvin because I speak pretty frankly about like just my perception of things, and I'm like, no, I love Calvin. In fact, he's a friend of mine, and we joke when I see him in person. I'm like, I hate you, but it's like, oh wow, Matt, it's really offensive. But like, you look at players like James Conrad, again, great guy, friendly, awesome. I'm surprised to see him so high up the list. Kevin Jones, incredible personality, but I just didn't see a lot of them in coverage. So it's great to see. I'll put it this way. It's great to see that they have these fans that are there to support and root for them. That's really cool. In fact, that may be a better core than some of what these other players have, right? If you're not winning, but you're still pretty high up this list, man, you got the right fans. At least that's kind of my takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, we could go on and on. I don't think we will. I'm going to let Jesse kind of give any closing remarks on this fandom survey. Like, are you going to, how do you choose to add new people? Are you gonna, do you remove people someday? Is it, all that kind of stuff. Like, where do you plan and hope to maybe take this one day? Because there's a lot to process for this year, but like looking forward into the future.
I mean, every year we'll reassess which players to include and which players not to include, which is a difficult decision because it's there's lots of people who I regret not including last year and regret not including this year. But there's only so much time we can take. It takes about 20 minutes to fill out the survey. And that's asking a lot of disc golfers. And so if we add on more, it becomes a half an hour survey. How many people are going to complete it? It becomes less useful if people aren't actually complete it. And in terms of where we're going to take it future, I really don't know. I think we'll just keep building on what we have. This year's survey had a lot more interesting questions than last year. We learned a lot. And so we'll continue to learn from what we're doing. I can tell you that the articles that will have coming up, over the off season, there's going to be one just on manufacturers. There's going to be one on discs, and there's all sorts of interesting things in the discs article. Then we're going to have one on media and commentators. We're going to have one on favorite courses, and then we'll have one with just some random, the gems that we didn't put into anything else. Other interesting things that we can put in that article, and then there might be something else. We'll see, if other articles we were inspired to do some other things.
I think the articles are very interesting. Just talking about this out loud, and a lot of the chat is saying the same thing, is that all of this is super, super interesting information, and the way you guys compile it all together is I'm excited to go back and read the article. I wish I could have read it today, but that'll be for another time. But anywho.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give it a moment of silence there and let it breathe, because someone in the chat says I don't let anybody else talk. And I'm like, if I sit here quietly, everyone else sits quietly. It's just the nature of the show. It's my role on the show. And this is my point earlier. The person who talks the most gets picked on the most. That's just how it is, and I've owned it. So let's see here. I think we're going to let this go and ride. And I think because I want people to go check it out and see more and look forward to the articles or the more storylines and stuff that come out of this. A lot of interesting things, and you can go find it yourself. Go check it out and see what you can come up with there. I would be interested to take a look at some of this as well. You provided a lot of good information to us, Jesse. I'm really intrigued by some of it. I'm going to dig into it more. I'm looking forward to the next ones that come out. Anything else you want to say before you go? How I would say how they can follow you and all that, but is it just best to support by checking out the articles on UltiWorld?
Yeah, just go to UltiWorld Disc Golf. Not UltiWorld, because that's going to be Ultimate Frisbee coverage. Make sure you Google UltiWorld Disc Golf to get on that side of the website. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the exposure for the survey when we were collecting data. I appreciate it now that we're getting the word out about the survey data, so that that's why we do this, is so that we can share this information with everybody in the community.
Totally appreciate it, man. Thanks
for the manufacturing one, like the manufacturers.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's gonna be great.
I think that one's going to be very interesting, because you'll look at it as, these manufacturers pay their players, or these manufacturers come out with the best discs, and it's going to be a really, really cool, I think, variety of answers that go along with that. So I'm excited for that one.
Absolutely. All right, man. Thanks for sticking with us through that slow startup. That is unfortunately became regular in the last few episodes. We're going to do an off-season thing here where I might be building a computer. I don't know. But this one's lasted us a good... Guys, Jesse, you can stick around for this if you want. I only spent... This is fun fact. On my computer that's lasted us now close to 4 years, or
coming up on 4
years.
March. Yeah.
Because I got it prior to that. So 4 years. 4 years ago, I got this computer that does everything that I've ever needed. After Effects and editing and 3D imaging, all this. Like, we have multiple cameras streaming in and out. Like, I spent $800 on this thing.
Really?
Yes.
No kidding.
Like, if I tried to buy this even today, it would be well over that. It'd be like $1,500.
Yeah, I built mine for $2,000.
So it's been a wonderful thing. But that leads us in.
Mine was like, I think $550. I realized drink the barrel.
I built a massive gaming computer.
Yeah, this is a power horse.
Gaming computer too. Just did it cheaply, I guess.
I didn't build this one. I bought it. But the point is, it's fantastic. It's been fantastic. I'm just not sure. I blame it on Windows somewhat here, but. All right.
Yeah, let's go to Linux. Let's go.
I'm down. We'll figure it out. All right. We're going to let you go, Jesse. Thanks for sticking through with us, and we appreciate all the information you provided, man.
Thanks.
All right. Peace out.
Later.
All right.
I mean, shout out to Jesse. I think in the last 2 years, he's been the longest guest that we've had on from pretty much start to finish an episode.
We need that.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
normally been 20
Well,
to 30 minutes per people. What?
We've been running it lately. We had Casey White for pretty much the whole show.
Hey, this is the
That's
off-season.
in
Nick
person, yes.
was
Yeah.
here for almost the whole show.
It's the
and
off
then-
season.
And then Jesse hopping in for almost the whole show.
Yeah.
here.
What if you were like, Jesse, like, tell us about your survey? Cool, thanks. Like, man, we would not have
No.
gotten the
Yeah.
Nick and Matt show exclusive. I actually find that interesting. I'm gonna go sleep on that one.
Yeah.
All
Being
right.
able to go in depth with all of it makes it just that much more intriguing, I think, for the surveys that are also coming up in the future.
I would be interested in a survey to the Nick and Matt show listeners. And if we could get 5,000 results or whatever, that'd be great. Because here's what I'd like to know. Do you think, like, what's Matt's opinion of Calvin Heimberg? Like actual, right? It'd be interesting to get that gauge. Like, do we actually like Natalie Ryan? Like, yes or no, 0 to 10. Like, just to get, we can keep it private or public. Like, what is the perception that we give
Like
off?
judge that disc golfer. but
Yes, but we find out like
Judge the Nick and Matt show.
judge the Nick
Do you
and Matt
think
show.
Evan can beat Ben in a round of disc golf?
Yes.
40% of people say
Go
yes.
Cogs.
You guys can't see Ben, but he's smiling over there. All
Fuming.
right.
He's fuming. Meanwhile, he wants to just play Meadowbrook all day, and I don't know if I'll play Ben
No,
there.
I can play
I gotta-
at Cogs now. I'm a lot better.
I got to shout out Westy Acres. I've been back for a little while. Don't get me wrong. I've been working ridiculous hours and weekends have been hella busy. I do plan on getting out there before year's end. So I will get out to Westy Acres. I'm also really excited. And this is a shameless plug to Simon Lazat. This isn't a paid advertisement at all, but his latest video of the course that was in Boylston, Hillside disc golf park or disc golf course, Hillside,
Yeah,
whatever.
Hillside disc golf.
Dude,
I don't know.
looked awesome. Him and Paul Cran shredded it. I think the pars are a little soft on a couple of holes. Don't get me wrong, but that's just, it is what it is. But man,
It
that
looks
course
nice on
looked
coverage?
awesome. I thought it looked awesome in his video.
That's cool because I played it early on, and if you saw my review, I wasn't the biggest fan.
Yeah, so
I made sure to screenshot
fortunately,
it
I
for,
haven't
you know, for
seen
the
or really
future.
heard much about it until I watched that video. I've heard little things about it,
So
but I actually thought it was really fun.
Hey, shout out to them. I knew a lot of work went in before I played it, and so I'm happy to see even more work went in. It wasn't my type when I played it, but maybe it got better. Maybe it's the type for a lot
It's
of other
better.
people.
It's better. I think it needed T pads. I changed my review too. I just said it needed T pads, and I changed it to.
it has T
I
pads now.
think that's
I
kind
changed it
of
to
in my
a Florida-
opinion,
that's very
when I played it, it needed
self-explanatory
a
though.
lot more than T pads.
Yeah.
It had some very bad holes.
So
It had some very
It's
confusing
fun though.
holes.
It's just fun.
It was a very
That's
advanced
what you
level
can-
course too, which you know my opinions.
It is not advanced.
So they hit me up after your review, Evan, I think somewhere around there. And they said, hey, can you come out and provide some feedback? We'd love to have, and I'm not a course designer, but I've been playing disc golf for a while. It doesn't matter my skill level. It matters what I understand about disc golf. And I walked every single hole and tried to provide as much positive feedback as I could. And I'm happy to see, and do not hear this as me saying I said it happened, because I think there was a lot. Simon walked it prior to this as well. They did a good job at getting feedback is my point, but I did see a lot of the changes that were made to make this course better now. And I think we're just going to see, give it another year. It's going to be like really good. It's playable now and probably fun.
That's awesome to hear. I used to live less than 10 minutes away or about that. So I would have been even more stoked, but now I'm like an hour and a half, so less stoked. But Westy Acres isn't far. So Nick, if you do get out there, let's try.
Evan,
Yes.
what do you think the word is that Westy Acres used to describe your reviews? The adjective they used to describe your reviews.
Westy is my biggest supporter, so I can't thank him enough. Spot on, maybe.
No,
No,
he
no,
said
no.
Evan's blank reviews.
Like when you
Honest?
review other
No.
courses,
He says
eviscerating.
Harsh?
eviscerating.
I don't know what that means. I'm going to be blunt there.
It just means like you're like destroying it, like you're eviscerating it, you're cutting it
Okay,
to
see-
pieces.
I don't like that because
Oh,
I know
It's
they
true.
can be
it's all in
harsh,
good fun.
but with my reviews, I want the course
He
to
said
get
also
better.
honest.
Okay.
I it's honest. I want all courses to get better. And so I tried, like, too many people when they rate a course, they're just like, oh, it was fun. Yeah, 5 stars. And I'm like, like, it was disc golf. Yes, disc golf's fun. But like, it could be more fun. And I want you to know why.
I just read the definition of eviscerate. It says disembowel a person or an animal.
Yeah, speaking of obliterating, Evan said to Hillside, the course will obliterate your average player, even with additional clearing. There you go.
That's funny. I should have said eviscerate.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, let's move into the closeout here. We were late on our start, but we don't want to give everybody a short show. We're doing okay. Allie Smith announced his departure from DGA. The way that I saw it was she said, "Hey, great experience. I'm moving on from DGA." That's not a quote. And then I don't know, I saw it the next day or two. Again, it may have played out together. I didn't look at the timestamps. DGA said mutually, like, we watched her. It was kind of interesting. Like, it was like a breakup letter almost. But like, we watched her go from AM Worlds to, you know, touring, and we wish nothing but the best for her. So they're splitting ways. Will be interesting to see where she goes. My take is that a lot of these players now are looking for money. And I don't mean that negatively. I mean, like, you get a sponsorship, and a lot of times it's discs, or, again, I don't know what her deal was. But then these players are like, I'm actually doing this now, and you're not able to come through with what I need or I'm looking for, so I got to go somewhere else. And they're like, I understand that. Like, it's probably one of these things where, like, we can't give you the more money, and so you need it. We understand. No harm, no foul, no hurt feelings. That's my guess. Even players looking to join the tour today are like, I know what I'm worth now. And players hitting up tour are starting to ask for cash money as well. I think it's just it's what it is nowadays.
It is very expensive
know
to
your
tour.
worth.
Exactly.
Know your worth, but also know what you're getting into. Realistically, like, I think that's just one of the biggest things is know what you're getting into. And I'll say this from a personal experience standpoint, is that, you know, I was never a great touring player. I was going to events to hopefully make somewhere in the cash range, but more often than not, if you look at my record, I didn't cash at them. That's from not being suited to play these bigger courses. My skill set wasn't always there consistently. You know, I could pop off a pretty good round here and there. Worlds in 2021 was great for me, but even still, I made $645 at Worlds for getting 41st place or 43rd place, and that didn't even cover my plane ticket to Utah. Now, if I'm going from Virginia,
I'm sorry, that was
you're
mean.
Right. So, did you say should have played better?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, agreed. I 100% think that.
Oh, I thought you played great. You cashed our Worlds. That's awesome.
Yeah. I met most of my goals that weekend. But even if I was to drive from Virginia to Utah, I don't know exactly how many hours that is, but I'm assuming it's over 20 hours. That's, you know, over 1,000 miles more than likely. That's, you know, multiple tanks of gas to there and back, wear and tear in the vehicle. Players have actually started coming out. Brody did this a little bit. I think Isaac Robinson chimed in a little bit, where they were talking about how much money it is to tour. Now, fortunately for 2021 Worlds, Paul and Hannah let me stay with them at an Airbnb. It was a beautiful Airbnb. Had I had to pay for that as well, or even pitch in for that, it would have been a $1,500 trip at I would say at minimum. I had to rent a car when I got out there. Like, all these things.
Schwebby in the chat just said, easy drive.
Schwebby drives everywhere. It's awesome. Like I said earlier, I woke up at 4 a.m. and, you know, been working all day. Schwebby was like, yeah, same thing, you know, driving back from Florida now. So, I mean, shout out to Schwebby. He's one of my all-time favorite people that I met, you know, down south. I love playing disc golf with him. Fortunately, got to play a bunch the last couple of years. But yeah, like he's a man. He drove out to Arizona this year. And like, I just drove the RV from, I'll take this actually. Here we go. I drove Paul's RV from Massachusetts to Michigan. And that was about a 13-hour trip, and it cost me.
Well, you're driving an RV.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying for players who are driving in a small size RV. Now, granted, no one's really driving, I think, the same size as Paul, but there are players who are driving a truck and trailer, Sprinter vans. You know, they're not getting great gas mileage. I don't know exactly what they're getting, but they're not getting great gas mileage. But for me to drive from Massachusetts to Michigan, about a 13-hour drive, was over, I think, $500 in fuel. Over $450 in fuel, and that was just one way.
And
let's say I was playing
reimburse you.
Yeah, no, I mean they are.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Imagine
I ain't doing that for free. Get the heck out of here. I work my butt off for $650, man. Come on.
What are you gonna get, like a 4-claw buzz or something? Like,
Hopefully 4 of them. No, I'm taking that. They're writing a check, sending it back to me.
That's awesome.
But not realistic. Like just for any players driving anywhere. Like my car, fortunately, I drove from Virginia to Kansas this year. I actually, the year that I got lead card at Waco, so 2022, I drove from Virginia to Texas, and that was a 21-hour trip there, and then a 21-hour trip back. So, I mean, I don't remember exactly how much I spent in gas. I know that the trip there, I did pretty much straight through, and all I ate was beef jerky the whole time because I just wanted to get to Waco. I left later than I wanted to, but it's expensive. A lot of players nowadays, they're all selling their vans. They're getting smaller cars, and they're doing Airbnbs with friends, but Airbnb prices are skyrocketing. Tournament entries are skyrocketing. Not everyone's sponsorship pays for their tournament entries. Tour card prices, I don't even know exactly what that number is, but I'm assuming in the multiple thousands of dollars to get a tour card to play out on the tour now. Fly to Europe, good luck with that. You're probably spending $800 to $2,000 depending on when you get in there. So yeah, for a lot of players who are switching companies and looking for which company is going to give them money, I think you are going to see a lot of players switch solely for the reason of money. And I mean, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, but it's just it's a hard life, and for players who are good at it and can actually make that life work, kudos to them. And I think it's awesome, and I think a lot of people would just dream to be in those shoes. But for someone like you gotta realize, you gotta kind of just have that gift to where you can go out and do this, and then 2, you gotta work your butt off harder than you work at potentially your day job right now. But like, you got to go on the road with a savings account, and you're also sacrificing a lot of things to go along with that.
It's an interesting lifestyle for sure. I call it a lifestyle right now for most of the players.
It's a very interesting job. It's a very poor job choice for some people, and it's a great job choice for other people. And I think that's just realistic.
If you're likable and you win, it's a good job.
If you're likable
choice.
and you win, yeah, exactly. Because a lot of players do make other sources of revenue and stuff like that. And some people, like, you know, over the last few years as the pandemic hit, a lot of people started working from home. I know a couple disc golfers who are able to work after the round. You know, if they're an FPO player, they play their tournament round and then they go work for, 5-6 hours after that. Or for MPO players, they work in the morning, then they get ready for the round. I mean, some people can make it work. I have never had the luxury of working an at-home job. I work in construction. So, my job is, when I'm doing it, I wake up, I go to my job, I go home, I pretty much punch in a ticket and I punch it out. And I love it. I love my job. I take vacation time when I want to go out to big events. And this was years ago, like 2019, 2020, before I had moved down south for a little bit. It was, hey, what vacation do I want to use to go out and play this tournament or go watch this one? So it's a crazy lifestyle. Also, the Celtics right now pissing me off. They're in overtime against the Hornets. What are we doing? We're 11-2. What's really funny is I've never had good luck betting. There's only been a few times in my life where I made a bet, like at a roulette table. I put $200 on black the first 30 minutes of me being in Vegas, ended up hitting it. But other than that, I've never won like any of my good parlays or anything like that. And I'm not advocating for sports betting. Please do not get into it. I literally tonight almost put $100 on Jason Tatum scoring 40 points tonight. And by the first half, he had 31. I think he's got like 42 or 44 points right now. I almost put $100 on it.
What is the lesson you learned, Nick?
That I should have put $100 on it.
Do not
follow your gut.
Unless.
But it's just one of the things. So I'm like, damn, And then I told one of my buddies, I was like, oh, because we always talk about our sports bets, and he's like, dude, please do not start betting hundreds of dollars. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, for me, like $2.50, like $2.50 is like, I'm going big here. I'm really confident.
I can make $10.
Yeah, I have $100 in my FanDuel account, so I was like, I'm just gonna put it on Jason Tatum right now, and I wish I freaking did it. I don't even know how much I would have won, but
$2.
All right, we've almost made it to our 2-hour mark. I will keep this conversation, and we have to, because this is not going to turn into a debate. It got brought up, the topics. If you follow Simon Lizott's channels, which apparently most people do, and he posts on social media, a lot of interesting questions after he left our show. He talked a little bit on our show last week. Go check it out if you haven't heard it yet. Simon talks about like what he had heard about course design. He was at a conference with John Houck, and the conference that was put together was held at Maple Hill. And then he went the next morning or that evening and started creating lots of social media questions for his followers, some of which were really interesting. Like, do we care about this or that, or pars, or how hard a hole is, all these questions. But then one that I saw on repeat a few times, then Ken Climo in the DGN special that was released last week or this week, whatever the week is. The idea that putting needs to be, and I'm going to use the word harder, but that may not be the right word that they're asking for, but they're trying to look for this opportunity to create more excitement as well as scoring in the way that that works. Again, not getting into super deep, because we've talked about this a lot, how to make putting harder. Do any of you guys just have a simple, like, not why, not the whole strategy behind it? I'll give you my 2 takes on it is move circle 1 back to circle 2. Just try it as a trial. Like, stand stills unless this is for elite. I'm not talking like, I'm saying for different tier events, you have a different, just like you do for college football to NFL or anything else. It changes the rules. We have elite players that we're saying you can step when you're 33 feet away. Like that, just let's push it back. That's one of my takes. The other is the possibility. You don't agree with it?
No, in between.
Okay. You have, yeah, I know Nick loves jumping though, but the point is, if Simon and Ken and all these people are feeling this way, we need to do something. And I think I've talked about different shaped greens, just like ball golf has. We don't have to keep it a circle. Let's push people to certain parts of it and say, if you're in this part, you can jump from 10, but if you're in this part, it's further back. Like, make it different. People are going to hate that, but that's fine. I'm just giving you my ideas.
I know.
The other would be to potentially make the basket different. I'm not going to get into the details of the exact part here, but make it a little bit different so that it is a little bit harder. And that's kind of my takes on this. But I think this would only be for elite. That's my take. It would only be for elite. They need to do a trial event, and I would love to see how it goes. I'm not saying let's just implement it.
See, I don't like having different rules for some pro tournaments and not other pro tournaments. Like, you're talking about college football versus professional football. That's 2 different leagues. You have college players who are doing the same thing for potentially 4 years of their college football life.
The elite series is different than an A tier. Absolutely. Like, but it's different league.
But it's professional disc golf. It's labeled as professional disc golf.
Yeah, but I can play in the professional division. And am I a professional?
Exactly. Well, I'm just saying, but you have elite.
I can't play on the elite.
You have elite level players who are also playing C tiers.
Nick, I get your point. I'm going to throw one example here is hockey. When you play in the NHL, you have a certain size rink, but then you go to the Olympics, they play in an international size rink, if I'm not mistaken. It's a different size. I'm also like baseball.
We're also talking once every 4 years then.
And then also soccer, field sizes are different. They play on different types of grass, like turf. Like, I think there's a lot of variability. Yeah, they play at the World Cup, they try to go for the same size, but like New York City FC plays in a baseball stadium. Their field's tiny, so it plays a totally different, it's a more physical game, a lot of just poking it into the box and hoping to get a score, a lot less wide play because you don't have as much.
And I don't know where else it shows up.
I'm just saying it happens. I'm not saying your point is wrong. Like, I see what you're saying. It was good to say college to NFL is different. Like, it's a different type of different. I want you to continue on. I just wanted to say that one part.
No, I definitely don't think, like, I don't love the idea of making at an Elite Series event, making the circle 45 feet versus then you go and play an A tier the weekend after, and now you're back to putting from 33 feet. I don't love that idea. But then also we're talking about, like Matt had just said, if Simon's saying it and Ken Climo are saying it, maybe we should make some changes. If I'm a really bad shooter in the NBA, I think that we should make the basket bigger, because I want to be able to hit more shots. Just because some people are saying it doesn't mean that the majority of people
Simon
are saying
missing
against it.
most of his shots?
No, I'm not saying Simon's missing most of his shots, but I'm giving you an example of, like, you can take 10, 20, 30 people, but then you have 70, 80, 90 people on the other side saying, no, that I don't think we should do that.
I don't know who those other people are, though.
I think if you make baskets smaller in the sport, I think you kind of kill a lot of the game. I think putting is fun to watch in disc golf, because we have highlight putters. We have long putts going in from 60, 70, 80 feet. Paul Macbeth at 2018 Maple Hill Open or MVP Open makes it on hole 13, the downhill 120 footer that almost has a full flight to it. You make the basket smaller, I think you kill the excitement that happens around the putting green. Now, don't get me wrong. I think every single pro in the world should make their 15 to 20 footers, but that's disc golf. We are easier than golf, and there's no shame in that whatsoever. We are an easier sport. And I'll just say this, and this is no slight against the FPO side.
Have you talked to Simon about why he might think this, or
I haven't talked to him about everything with it, but we've talked about
curious.
course design. We've talked about course design because we, spent a couple of days together this past weekend. But take the FPO side. Their
and to be fair,
percentages.
I don't think he put out his opinion on this. He didn't say, I don't want to be, I'm not trying to paint this as Simon's crying for better or smaller baskets. Ken Climo did. He said maybe we should consider
I think that's also Ken Climo being bitter about the generational aspect of things. But that's just you have an all-time great looking at the sport how it is nowadays. And you're like, oh, back in my day, anyone can say that. Back in my day, we used to shoot with electric caps for dynamite. Now we shoot with non-electric caps. Like,
so do you think we've arrived with baskets then? Like we finally have arrived?
I think you can. I think you can tweak baskets, but I don't think that they should.
To do what? Catch better?
I would say catch better, and not as much flukiness. I'm not saying make it easier to where they're going to catch everything. Like I think the easiest basket in the sport to putt on is a Mach X. For me personally, not saying everyone is going to have that same luck, but for me personally, I like putting on Mach X's. I feel like I can't miss a putt when I'm putting on those because I feel like they catch very well for my putting style. Now, I don't think that the Mach X is the perfect basket, but I also think that we're not going to ever see a perfect basket.
I think Calvin actually on Tour Life said that basket was too easy.
You could very well think that it's too easy.
So it's like this weird, like,
That's
how do you
almost
determine?
You could think that one is almost too easy, but I think if you shrink the basket cage, you see this at European Open, actually. The baskets that they put on have a much smaller cage than the general one that players play on during the Elite Series. Greg Barsby, someone who's a very nose down putter, has had putts go in the cage, hit, and zing right out. I think that's a fluky flaw in the basket. I don't like seeing those kind of things. But at the same time, okay, now you can have the argument, oh, you should change your putting
Evan,
style.
I was going to say, I was looking at Evan.
Well, here's the thing, though. I want to kind of focus on the Disc Golf Pro Tour as an entertainment product. It's not, hey, who can have the most beautiful type of disc golf? It's no, like, what can be the most fun disc golf to watch? What can get more fans in to watch disc golf, play disc golf, be around disc golf? And aces, big shots, big putts, that's like, those are so much fun.
Exciting.
Think about like, I don't think getting on top 10 is that big of a deal. I don't think getting on Sports Center is that big of a deal, but it was for Doss at Memorial, and it still is for a lot of people. How do you get on Sports Center? Is it the sickest shot that is this awesome turnover line through the woods that then parks the basket? Or is it the 400-foot ace that
I just thought of it, Evan. Based off what you just said.
It's catching. You want it to catch at high speeds. And I would love putting to get harder for scoring separation. I would love it. I would love to have smaller baskets for the pro level because it would have better scoring separation. It would make putting difficult. Having a marksman would be interesting. I want to see it tested. But to me, it says you get rid of those highlight putts. You get rid of the crazy excitement. You get more layups. And the last thing I want to say is the last thing I want to say on baskets, I want to get to green sizes too. The last thing I'll say on baskets is if you bring in a smaller basket on tour and you say it's pro only, that is false. Courses will want to follow what the pros are doing. They want to be like the pros. And so they're going to have smaller baskets as well. And that will annoy me greatly. And that's, hey, me as a putter, which either Nick or Matt, one of you guys said earlier. So I want to see courses or the equipment we use be in a way that courses want to use it. And I don't want to see a smaller basket because courses will then want to use that smaller basket to be like the pros. Oh, we have a championship level course where you're a small town that doesn't really host any tournaments. They want to be like that. And I think that's bad.
Yeah. So it's kind of a funny thought I had, and it's probably not correlated at all. But in golf, they have a flag defining where the pin is, and you're able to pull that out, right? Are you're not that you could walk all the way down there and pull it out when you drive, but would you be allowed to pull that out on a drive?
That I could not give you a straight up answer.
I don't know either. Someone maybe in the chat. I learned some interesting things about PGA golf this last week, including match play and everything else. It was an interesting topic. If somebody knows that, I'm interested, because in my mind, to fix kind of what Evan's talking about, it would be interesting. This is crazy out of the box. Laugh it off, whatever you want to do. If you're inside the circle, the outer chains get pulled off. Like it's like a little removal thing. Somebody does it, an official that's there. let's make putting harder inside the circle. Like, keep the aces off the tee pad. Like, the basket's full size catches. It catches the big putts that you're just talking about. But, like, let's make it harder and more exciting to watch. I think it's more exciting. Hold on. I think it's more exciting to think that somebody from 20 feet is super nervous and they might miss that putt because it's a hard putt to make than it is. Like, but keep what you're saying. Keep outside the circle. Keep it easier so they go for the big putts. But make it hard once they get close, because, like, it's too easy.
All you're going to see is layups.
From inside the circle?
Look at the FBO division sometimes.
Literally inside the circle, they're going to lay up.
Yeah.
No.
100%.
You're going to get people that run it. You're not telling me that.
You make putting.
Go to bullseye.
Oh, okay. Now you're talking about two of the best putters in FPO. Take Henna and Evelina. Take Henna and Evelina. And now, but you just said it's an entertainment thing. Is that entertaining to you?
Yes. Inside the circle, if you had a bullseye
if you're watching everyone lay up.
There's two different things. There's the scoring separation part, which, yes, you want it harder. And then there's the entertainment one where you say, no, you want it easier. You want more to catch.
I don't think you need to make it easier. I think you almost keep it the way that it is.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is an interesting conversation.
You can perfect, like, we obviously know that Innova disc catchers are better than DD veterans baskets, right? Okay. One thing to do. I actually
like veterans, but I do like disc catchers more.
Yeah. So don't use veterans as much, or if at all. Pros have come out and say, like, we had Jeremy Colling on, had a great interview with him. And he talked about how he actually spoke to Jeremy Rusko about, hey, these baskets are an issue. Let's figure this out. And Jeremy was very receptive of it and, like, wants to figure that out, because that's his brand that he's putting on those baskets that players are using. So I'm not saying we need to completely kill those baskets. Come out with better designs. The Pro Tour should have a universal basket, one that goes into the ground when they get to the event, comes out of the ground when they leave the event. And the the course should go back to the way it is, whatever baskets they have on it. The pros themselves for the Disc Golf Pro Tour should have a universal basket that travels with them. Lots of different ways that you could do that. Lots of different ways you could advertise on every single basket. There are ways to do it, though. Now you have to carry around 26 extra baskets per tournament, which is a whole trailer load pretty much. Don't get me wrong. I know that's a pain in the butt as it is, but if you make putting that much harder in disc golf, when people do hit that big shot or when that ace does go in, it's awesome. But at the same time, you're going to kill so much of the entertainment around the green. And it's just going to be like,
I just feel like I disagree with the layups inside the circle. That's all. It was kind of a joke to say it, but I don't think I would see layups. And if you do, that player probably should not be on the Pro Tour. That'd be my take on that.
I want to say real quick about extending the circle. I'm all for it, because I think just in a general, disc golf should be more standstills, less following through. I am for it in that sense. I'm good to move it. But what I want to say is I don't think moving the circle or extending it out, whether it's pro only or for all divisions, will actually make putting harder, at the pro level. Paul McBeth, Nick, if Paul McBeth's putting an 80-footer, is he jump putt? He might jump.
Depends on the scenario.
He so often will just look absolutely normal. And he might engage his legs more. He might change things up in the putt.
He's the most well-rounded player, I think, ever.
That's he will stand still it from 80 feet in my mind.
But he's a different breed. Like, he deserves to have it easier from that distance. I'm saying majority of the players, though.
And so I think players will get to that level and you'll see no difference. And I would love to see it push that way. I don't like the idea of, hey, we need, like, when the conversation comes up, hey, let's make putting harder. And then people immediately say, okay, move the circle to 20 meters. I'm like, okay, sure. That's step one that does nothing. Like, we need to do so much more to actually get to that goal of make putting harder.
All right.
You get where I'm going?
Yes, I do.
Do you saying that just so you can talk, Ben?
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's why. You can keep going.
No, I'm just saying I would love to see move back. I just don't think that'll actually make putting easier. I think it'll be a minuscule difference at the pro level, and it'll be a terrorizing for AM level. I think we should actually make the circle smaller for like MA3 and below.
Well, no, let the MA. This is my point. And I know you guys didn't love the difference.
7-meter circle.
I know you guys didn't love changing up things based off of divisions and all that, but I think why not? Yeah, why not say if you're a junior, like let's move it closer. Like if you're a pro, let's move it further. Like your circle sizes are different. Like that's the same way you would probably have courts with juniors. I don't know. I'm making this stuff up now. The size of hockey nets, or goals, soccer.
I mean, the T-pads change for the most part. In different divisions.
Different distances. Oh yeah, right. So let's do it for the greens.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
The only way that I agree with that is age protected.
That's what I'm saying.
When it comes to young kids, that's the
I'm
only
actually at the point
where
I think the lowest level offered, which is MA, FA 4, you can do it for juniors too. I think you should be able to step putt from every single distance. Like maybe 2 meters is the circle, because I have friends that I play with who will just follow through a putt from like 10 feet. It's just how they do it. It's like they don't know the rules. It's just how them playing. I have no problem with it because it's just the level it is. Now, if I'm playing a tournament, I'll call someone on a foot fault there. Like, yeah, it is at the level I play at, which isn't high, but it's high enough to call that. But I think at the entry level at tournaments, like, why is that a thing? Matt, you have kids. Like, if you have a 6-year-old playing his first tournament, like, he might follow through from 10 feet. And that's like, that shouldn't be a penalty for that level player. But it should be a penalty for Paul Macbeth. Like, not that he does it, but it should be.
There's a lot that could be discussed here. Let's give intern Bennett a chance.
I was just going to say one thing. I think the most obvious thing to make putting harder, ban practice putting. That's all. It's just like, all pros ban them from practicing their putt, and it'll be hard for them. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay. That was interesting. Good take.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I doubt that's, I mean, I don't want to say I doubt it will happen. At some point, something like this may come up. And I know that, and I already alluded to this last week, like, and Simon was looking at me saying he heard the same thing. There's stuff coming down the pipe, most likely, for this Elite Series events that's going to change competition rules, and we're just going to have to wait and see if it happens. Like,
are we going to talk about the OB one, or do we not want to hash it?
We would have to have on the person who, I think, because I don't know the details of it fully. There's going to be interesting rules that are going to come out, I think, and I'm hearing rumors that
are trash.
Well, I'm not calling them trash.
Absolute trash.
This would.
I haven't heard of it.
I'm gonna pester you after this if you're not gonna say it.
We'll talk. If it
Get
comes
ready to
out,
sign up for our Patreon, because I'm about to go off on these guys in our after show meeting.
All right, here we go. So in conclusion here, this week is Thanksgiving for those of you, especially here in United States. I think most of the world celebrates this, and I know we have a worldwide audience, but specifically we do it here for different reasons, but it doesn't have to be that for everybody. So I'm thankful for you guys. This is conclusion of just about a conclusion. We're not totally there. We'll talk about it. December is going to be very sparse with shows. Next week we'll have a show. But I'm really, really, really grateful for the crew here. The fun that we can have debating hardcore and then maintaining our friendships is always great.
Maintaining our friendships.
Yeah, wink, wink, and Nick. 4 years of debating disc golf, and we're
4
still
years
buddies.
of debating disc golf and 24 years of knowing each other. So
that's right. I'm appreciative. I'm appreciative of all the listeners and those who join us live. We understand this is something that you do and look forward. Well, we think you look forward to on Monday nights, and we're sorry we delayed you tonight. But we're really grateful for that as well. We look forward to the things that we're going to implement in the coming year. Be excited. I think we got some things that maybe you guys can benefit from.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And yeah, so that's what I say. Anybody else have any closing thoughts on this? We don't got to go around the room, but
yeah, let's say what they're thankful for.
Okay.
I'm thankful for you guys as well. You know, this show has changed my life. It's helped me get into the disc golf scene in ways that I've never seen, and made my expo a lot easier because I had a lot more connections and people knew who I was. So it was a lot easier to get people there, and it's been very beneficial. So thank for you guys for taking a chance on intern Ben and accepting me and molding me into the disc golf man I am today.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead, Evan.
Oh, right.
Dang it. I was hoping you'd go first.
No, I'll go last.
All right. I'm thankful for Matt, Nick, and Ben here. It's fun to be on this every week and share my medium takes that Ben thinks are hot.
Dude,
in
you
person.
have the hottest takes out of everyone.
Yeah, sure. I'll take the hot takes as
It's
long
not a
as you
bad
either heavily agree with me or heavily disagree with me. If you're just like, I could go either way, then I don't like that, and I did a bad job. I went a little off the rails there. I'm thankful for the show and all of our fans.
Yeah,
so
I was
Nick,
like,
I'm good.
I am thankful that our chat, our fans out there have made doing this on Monday nights and originally Thursday nights one of the most fun things that I can look
you just
forward
took
to.
it back.
Yeah. I look forward to it just about every single week. There are some weeks where I'm a little tired, but I'm thankful for you guys to, especially the day ones who have been sticking around with us for almost 4 years now. It's been an incredible experience with all of this, and we have a lot of really, really cool things coming up in the future. So be on the lookout for that. But obviously very thankful for Matt. Matt got me into the sport of disc golf and has kind of molded my early onset career in the sport. And then Matt and I have been able to grow in our different areas, but then also in the same area with the Nick and Matt show. And if you talked to us 10 years ago and said where we're at in the sport, I think we'd both laugh about it and say, no way that's ever going to happen. But definitely thankful for you guys. Thankful for the showcast here. Ben, Evan have been, two of the best additions that I think we could have asked for with the show. And once again, to all the post audio listeners who aren't listening live, thank you guys so much for helping us out. And then to any of the sponsors who have ever presented with our show, Cosmic DG being our presenting sponsor. So that's going to wrap it up. Celtics lost. I'm pretty pissed about it. I'm going to have to cry about it in a little bit. I got a new Celtics sweatshirt that I'm wearing right now, and apparently it wasn't good luck. So anyways, thank you guys once again so much for tuning in on this awesome Monday night. This is episode 166 presented by Cosmic Disc Golf. Go check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube video going on right now. Please help us out with the likes. Thank you to everyone here. Tell someone you love them this week. Be thankful for what you got going on this week with Thanksgiving. And remember those who can't be with us during this holiday season. So love you guys very much. Tell someone you love them this week. We'll catch you in the next one.
Guys, I'll be joining you from Iowa next week. It's the land of Gannon Burr. Apparently my hotel is in his hometown.
There you go.
He's like, dude, that is where I live. And I'm like, okay.
Urbandale?
I'm also going to catch up with his caddy, Matt Schlabach. So I think I might actually be live from his pro shop next week, guys. We'll see.
There you go.
That'd be awesome.
Very cool.
Appreciate it. Pretty good. All right, guys. Until next week and many more. Talk to you guys out there. Peace out. You're cool. You're cool. You're cool.
Cool.
Peace out.
The Nick and Matt Show, a disc golf podcast designed for you, the disc golfer. Find the Nick and Matt Show on your favorite podcast platforms or join the conversation live on YouTube.